section, we'll be moving a special motion, and this particular motion is on the consideration of nominee for the appointment as a member of the National Gender and Equality Commission on NGEC. And in this particular motion is taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Social Protection in its report on vetting of the nominee for appointment as a member of the National Government and Equality Commission. The member or the chair will be seeking to have the House approve the appointment of Dr. Margaret Karungaru as the member of the National Gender and Equality Commission. The chairperson Departmental Committee on Matters Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations will be moving a motion on the ratification of the agreement between Kenya and the United Kingdom on defense cooperation. Another motion for consideration before the floor of the House this afternoon is a motion by the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Matters Health. The motion is on the ratification of the African Union Treaty for the establishment of the African Medicine Agencies. Another motion is the consideration of the report of the 144th as well as 145th Assemblies of the Interparliamentary Union, and this particular motion is by member of the Kenya delegations to this particular assembly. The Statutes Laws Amendment Bill, Bill number 60 of the year 2022, is a bill for consideration this afternoon. This particular bill is currently at the second stage. It is a bill by the Leader of Majority, and we expect members of Parliament to be making their input in regards to the proposed amendments to this Statute Laws Amendment Bill. The Leader of Majority will also be moving a motion on the general debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution as well as the standing orders. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Orders number 42A, subsection 6B, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and the National Administration will be responding to questions. This afternoon sitting, the Cabinet Secretary is set to appear before plenary to answer questions from members of Parliament. The first question is by Honourable Member for Chuka Igamba Ngombe, Honourable Patrick Munene, who will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration to explain the circumstances that led to the killing of Mr. Daniel Mutembei on the 18th of March 2023 in Kwego village within Rubate location in Tharaka Nithi. Locals thereafter staged demonstrations against police inaction in arresting the suspects. Another question by Honourable Member is whether the state has taken any measures to protect the applicants in the criminal application number E007 of the year 2023 filed in the High Court of Kenya in Chuka from threats of impending arrests without formal charges being preferred against them and threats to their lives, leading to them being immobile as well as unable to be united with their family. The last question under that category is whether the Cabinet Secretary will be required to state the circumstances that led to the fatal shooting of the chairperson of the border operators, allegedly by a police officer during the said demonstration on the 18th of March, the year 2023, and clarify whether the police officer has been identified or arrested as well as charged. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honourable Moses Wetangula, is in the chambers this afternoon. I'll now hand you over for the live broadcast of these particular live proceedings of the National Assembly. Enjoy your viewing and good afternoon.
Mheshimiwa, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Honorable members, we have quorum to transact business. I must commend you for being conscious of our times. I think the Easter holiday has done you very well. Clerk.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, April 12th, 2023, the afternoon sitting. 1. Annual National Government Budget Implementation Review Report for the financial year 2021-2022 from the Office of the Controller of Budget. 2. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2022. National Urban Transport Improvement, Kenya National Highways Authority. Horn of Africa Gateway Development, State Department for Infrastructure. Horn of Africa Gateway Development, Kenya National Highways Authority. Mombasa Port Area Road Development, Kenya National Highways Authority. National Urban Transport Improvement, Kenya Railways Corporation. Kenol Sagana Marua Highway Improvement, Kenya National Highways Authority. Kapchorua, Saum, Kitale, and Eldoret Bypass Roads, Kenya National Highways Authority. Nairobi Metropolitan Services Improvement Project, State Department for Housing and Urban Development. Green Growth and Employment Thematic Programs, NEMA, National Environment Management Authority. Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project, State Department for Crop Development and Agricultural Research. Timboroa Eldoret Road Rehabilitation Project, Kenya National Highways Authority. Program for Legal Empowerment and AIDS Delivery, State Law Office and Department of Justice. Salaries and Remuneration Commission, Mortgage and Car Loan Scheme Fund. Judiciary Service Commission, Ministry of Energy. Kenya Sports Agency, National Police Service Commission, Ministry of Health, State Department for Infrastructure. Kenya Primary Education Development, State Department for Learning and Basic Education. Kenya GPE COVID-19 Learning Continuity in Basic Education, State Department for Early Learning and Basic Education. Revenue Statement of the State Department for Fisheries, Aquaculture and Blue Economy. Nairobi Ring Transmission Line, Kenya Electricity Transmission Company Limited. Menengai Geothermal Project, Geothermal Development Company, and support to technical and vocational education and training for relevant skills and skills development, and the Independent Policing Oversight Authority Staff Mortgage and Car Loan. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 12 April 2023, the report of the Departmental Committee on Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation on its vetting of a nominee for the appointment of a person of the chairperson of Kenya Fish and Marketing Authority. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Chair, Committee, Blue Economy, Water, Irrigation.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give a notice of the following motion. That taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee of Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation in its report for the vetting of nominee for the appointment as chairperson for the Fish Marketing Authority laid on the table of the House Wednesday, 12 April 2023, and pursuant to the provision of Section 201, subsection 1A, and 2 of the Fisheries Management and Development Act 2016 and Section 8.1 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of the Honorable Martin Otieno Okindo as the chairperson of Kenya Fish and Marketing Authority. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kangogo. Next order.
I'm pushing it, man. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable members, although we had directed that questions will be starting at about 3 o'clock, but in view of lack of other issues before questions, I order that the Minister for Internal Security be called into the chamber Cabinet Minister for Interior and National Administration, the Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki, Minister Professor Kithure Kindiki, welcome to the House of Parliament. You have the distinction of being the first minister under the new dispensation to appear before this House to answer questions raised by members of Parliament. You are welcome. You are the only minister appearing today. We have 5 questions, 4 ordinary questions, and 1 question by private notice. I will start with the question by private notice by the member for Chuka Ingambangombe, Patrick Ndwiga Munene, who is not in the chamber, but has written to Mr. Speaker delegating Honorable Benjamin Kadiru to ask the question on his behalf. I hope, Benjamin, you'll be able to handle any supplementaries that flow therefrom.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I like to ask question number. I like to ask question by private notice. Number 005/2023 by the Honorable Member for Chuka Igamba Ng'ombe, Honorable Patrick Munene, MP for Chuka Igamba Ng'ombe. I wish to say that he is still in the constituency because of the same.
That has already been communicated to Mr. Speaker. Just ask the question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Just say, I beg to ask question this number on behalf of so-and-so who is not available in the House today.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to ask the question on behalf of Honorable Munene, Chuka Igamba Ng'ombe MP. The member had requested the statement. Where is it? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honorable member wished to ask a question. Could the cabinet secretary explain, number one, the circumstances that led to the killing of Mr. Daniel Mutembe on 18th of March 2023 in Kwego village within Rubate location, Tharaka County, which was reported to the police under OB number 7/19/03/2023. Roman 2. Could the cabinet secretary indicate whether the perpetrators of the criminal act have been apprehended since the Rocos thereafter staged demonstration against police inaction in arresting the suspects? Roman 3. Could the cabinet secretary state the measures in place to protect the application in the criminal application number E007 of 2023 filed in the High Court of Kenya in Chuka from threats of impending arrest without formal charges being preferred against them, and the threats to their lives leading to them to be immobile and unable to be united with their families? Roman 4. Could the cabinet secretary state the circumstances that led to the fatal shooting of the chairperson of Buddha operators allegedly by a police officer during the said demonstration on 18th of March 2023, and clarify whether police officer has been identified, arrested, and charged? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to thank you for the warm welcome and to congratulate Parliament on the adoption of the new standing orders that allows cabinet secretaries to appear before the House and answer questions raised by members of Parliament directly. Honorable Speaker, sir, the member for Chuka Igamba Ng'ombe has asked the circumstances that led, he has asked for an explanation of the circumstances that led to the killing of Mr. Daniel Mutembe on 18th March 2023 in Kwego village, Rubate location, Tharaka County, which was reported by police on the following day, 19th of March 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, On 18th of March 2023, a Mr. Leonard Njeru Mbuba from Robate location reported that his cousin, Daniel Mutembe, a male adult approximately 34 years, had been attacked the previous night by known people, according to the report, severely and critically injured, left for the dead, rained on for the rest of the night, recognized by villagers early in the morning who were taking milk to the collection point, still alive early in the morning. The Speaker, although critically injured, it was reported that Mr. Mutembe was able to talk and identified those that attacked him and gave their names, 5 suspects. He was taken to hospital, but the injuries were already too much and he succumbed at the Chuka Referral Hospital. He succumbed to the injuries. That report was made and entered into the OB. Mr. Speaker, sir, and just for the clarity of the member and the House, that report was made the same morning of 19th March 2023. Investigations ensued, and before any statements could be taken from any of the suspects, the same suspects went to the Chuka High Court and obtained anticipatory bail, restraining their arrest and prosecution until the matter is heard and determined, or until further orders were issued by the High Court. Those orders, Mr. Speaker, sir, were issued by Lady Justice Lucy Gistari of the Chuka High Court on 27th of March 2023, and the order specifically restrained the police from arresting the said persons. The orders also required that the matter be heard today, the 12th of April 2023. Today, the matter was came up for mention, and Mr. Speaker, I can report to the House that in the morning the parties were heard, and I can also report to the House, Mr. Speaker, that for us in the ministry, we instructed the State Council to represent those parties that against whose orders were given, including the Inspector General of Police, the DCI, and all those who were sued. The family of the victim, the late Mutembe, also had hired a lawyer this morning, and both Mr. Mutembe's lawyer and the State Council made a very, very strong argument in an oral application for 2 things. One, the vacation of the anticipatory bail, which was lapsing today, that it should not be extended. And 2, warrants of arrest to issue against the suspects. And both the deceased lawyer and the State Council were on one page, of course, against the opposition from the Defense Council. The ruling on this matter is before the judge, this afternoon at 2:30, the same time that the minister is appearing before this House. In between, Mr. Speaker, on Saturday the 8th of April, which is Easter Saturday, the victims were supposed to bury the late Mutembei, but they felt that this matter had taken too long and could not understand why a matter where there was, in their view, overwhelming evidence pointing at the killers should still be out there. And notwithstanding the anticipatory bail, they demanded that the arrest be done. There was a serious demonstration for most of the afternoon on Saturday from 3 p.m. to well into the night. They were carrying the coffin of the late Mutembei and demonstrated the whole afternoon, engaging the police in running battles. The police tried to talk to them diplomatically to bury the deceased as we wait for the finalization of the matter by way of appearance before court today, but they could hear none of it. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the protesters engaged police in throwing missiles when the police tried to use tear gas, and it was really a very, very rowdy protest. And of course, one would understand the public hunger given the circumstances which the deceased had died. Mr. Speaker, sir, the police were able to open the road much later in the night, but an incident occurred around 7 p.m. the same night. One of the local young leaders, the chairperson of the Tharaka Nithi Border Association, one Willis Mugambi alias Kiraku, was shot dead in the chest around 7 p.m. and died on the spot. And that complicated the matter. And immediately that happened the same night, we dispatched through the Inspector General of Police the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service from Nairobi. The head of the Internal Affairs Unit actually was dispatched the same night to Chuka to travel there and personally take over the investigations, mainly the investigations around the shooting of Willis Mugambi alias Kiraku, because it was alleged again by some who made reports that they suspected that he could have been killed by a police officer in the process of the riots. So we dispatched the Internal Affairs Unit. It's still there. We have crucial evidence, and we believe very shortly we'll be narrowing down to the person who shot and killed Mr. Mugambi. At the same time, the Independent Police Oversight Authority the following day on Sunday dispatched their team to investigate that incident. IPOA is independent. So while the internal investigations by the police is handled by the Internal Affairs Unit from Nairobi, the IPOA team also from Nairobi is handling an independent investigation so that there are no perceptions of internal collusion or preference whatsoever. The two teams are working, and I am told a lot of progress has been made, but up to now, the conclusion, the investigations are not concluded. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the in-between, we have reinforced security presence. As late as last night, there were incidents of, again, a few youths trying to block roads. And we have deployed the Regional Police Commander, Mr. Rono Bunei from Embu for Eastern Region. Is the one personally dealing with that matter. because, again, there were aspersions cast at our officers who are based in Chuka, both the officer commanding Chuka Police Station and the county commander for Tharaka Nithi County. I can report, Right Honorable Speaker, that as we speak, in the meantime, we felt that in order to build public confidence in our officers, the Inspector General of the National Police Service has transferred both the OCS of Chuka Police Station and the County Police Commander of Tharaka Nithi, and new officers have been put in place already as we speak. So that's where we are, Mr. Speaker. We do not have any conclusive evidence. I want to assure the House that, one, we will respect the outcome of the court decision regarding the anticipatory bail, which we have opposed through the State Council. Once that anticipatory bail is lifted, and based on the evidence we have, all suspects are going to be rounded up in minutes. But we cannot violate a court order, and we really hope that our case will be favored by the judge this afternoon to allow us continue with the justice process beyond the point it is at the moment. With regard to the killers of Mr. Kiraku, the Boda Boda chair, again, we believe in the next few days we will be able to have enough evidence to help us take action, including prosecution of the suspect. I think, Honorable Speaker, that is all I have up to now. I remain at the disposal of this House for any supplementary issues, and also with regard to the other questions that are listed in the order paper this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Major Dong, do you have any supplementary to that on behalf of your colleague?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would say that thanks to the Cabinet Secretary for answering the same question, and having originated from the same county, I believe the Cabinet Secretary understands well, and he will be able to deal with that matter conclusively. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That is a comment, Minister. You need not answer. Morugara. Now, those who want to ask supplementaries, you go to interventions, and I'll give only 3.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, the Cabinet Secretary, for that response. But I do have a supplementary question on behalf of the family of the late Willis Mugambi Kiraku as follows. What measures will the government put in place to ensure that the family of the late Willis Mugambi Kiraku, the Boda Boda chairman Tharaka Nithi, who was fatally shot on the 8th of April 2023, is properly, sufficiently, and adequately compensated for the loss of their kin without undue delay? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, you note the 3 supplementaries that will follow each other, then you answer. Robert Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having been a victim of police violence, I think it's important to ask this because I know forensic evidence can show the gun that shot the bullet that killed that young Boda Boda rider, and also very many young boys and girls who were killed during the recent demos. I just wanted to confirm from the CS, are shoot-to-kill orders the acceptable by this regime of Kenya Kwanza that you serve? And do the police bosses understand the Constitution and the right of Kenyans to be able to picket under Article 37? Thank you.
The Honorable Pauline Lenguris, Samburu Women Rep.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I want to conjoin my question to the Minister, and I want to thank him for the response. And want to request him that the killing of young innocent people has become rampant in this country. A case in point are also the killings that are brought about by the bandits. Every day, we are losing two people every day in the presence of security officers. I want to base my case in Samburu, for example, just related to that case, because killing is just a killing. We are losing people every day. And the minister is aware, I'm sure, is being briefed every day that people are being killed by the bandits who come to displace people in their homes. They are killing in the presence of the security officers who are there, the army, the GSU, the police. So we are wondering, what are these security officers doing when innocent people are being killed each and every day? We have lost properties. In 2 months, in Samburu, for example, we have lost 30 young men and 1 middle-aged woman. We cannot continue in this trend, Mr. Professor Kindiki. Please do something. And if the security officers are overpowered by the bandits, tell us, then we will plan ourselves to deal with them properly. Thank you.
The last supplementary minister I'll give for Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just as a follow-up to the question originally asked by Mr. Honorable Munene, Mr. Minister, Waziri, I must really appreciate the speed with which your ministry dispatched the Internal Affairs Unit and indeed the IPOA to carry out investigations on the fatal shooting of Mr. Mugambi in Chuka. Mr. Speaker, we have similar, more or less similar cases that have happened in the recent past. A case in point is the fatal shooting of a third-year Maseno University student, William Mayenga, in Maseno University by the police on the 20th, I think, of March this year. The second incident is the killing by being run over by a police vehicle of police officer Ben Odur of Nyamira, or of Keroka Police Station, Nyamira County. Bwana Waziri, could you confirm to the August House if you have similarly, in those instances, dispatched the Internal Affairs Unit to carry out investigations, and if so, what is the progress of those investigations? What is the status of those investigations? Or could we be seeing a case of double standards, application of the law differently in different situations, in different parts of the country, and concerning different communities? 2, is it now a policy of the Kenya Police Service to quell riots by use of live bullets? Is the old policy of using rubber bullets now discarded? And if so, when did this change in policy occur? And for whose benefit? Thank you.
Minister, there is a member, Honorable Kamren, who says that if he doesn't ask a supplementary, it will not be good for him today. I'll give him a minute, then you can answer the 5 questions.
Asante Bwana Spika. Nataka nichukue nafasi hii Spika. Ya nashukuru waziri amejaribu, lakini ninapoongea saa hii vita inaendelea kwangu Baringo South. Sasa hivi ninapoongea na kijana mmoja tumepoteza maisha, 3 wameumia. Nimetumana pesa ya meli kwenda kuwachukua wale ambao wameumia, na nimetumana gari kwenda kuchukua mwili, na saa hii ng'ombe imeenda, watu wanakimbia, wanahangaika kwa sehemu ya Kiserian, Mukutane na Rukus. Najua waziri alikuwa huko hapo awali, lakini saa hii imekuwa chungu kwamba kazi hii ya bandits inaendelea Sijui waziri utafanya namna gani kwamba watu wangu wapata amani. Nimeomba kila wakati kwamba au wakora watolewe rukus mkutane na urban locations. Au wamechukua hiyo locations sote tatu. Hakuna mtu naishi mashule, mpaka hata pandits wenyewe wanaishi kwa mashule. Ile tuliyochenga kwa CDF. Nitakuwa nikicomplain mara ngapi? Watu wangu hawana punduki. Mimi sio kama wale wengine wana punduki wanaweza kujiokoa. Sisi hatuna punduki. Waziri na anaelewa. Naomba kwamba nahitaji amani na hii watu wangu ambao wameumia saa hii kwa sababu sijui hata ni ngapi. Naomba kwamba waziri, tutafanya nini hii vita saa hii isimame na watu wangu warejee, na hiyo ng'ombe imechukuliwa irudi, na serikali wanisaidie hiyo mwili ambaye imeenda na hao watu naumia, serikali wakaramie. Asante sana.
Minister, you may answer those 6 supplementaries. Be precise and concise. Given the tremendous interest, I might give another 2 thereafter.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, with regard to the supplementary question raised by the member for Tharaka, I would like to respond as follows. That at this point, when investigations are ongoing, we do not have conclusive evidence on who would have shot the deceased. However, if the evidence links an officer of the National Police Service or any other government official in the murder of Mr. Kiraku, 2 things I would like to assure the House. 1, whoever is responsible will be prosecuted. And 2, if the person has died in the hands of our officers, the procedures for compensation will ensue. Honorable Speaker, with regard to the question raised by the Honorable Mbui, I would like to respond as follows. There are no shoot to kill orders. On the contrary, all officers in the National Police Service and all security agencies who are involved in managing public protests, demonstrations and riots and crowd control are under very strict instructions not to use live bullets when dealing with members of the public. In fact, Honorable Speaker, the reason the OCPD was transferred is because there were very strict orders given by the Inspector General of Police that there should be no live bullets used in crowd control, not just in Chuka, but even in other protests. So we want to give some independence so that we establish when the OCPD is not in office, if indeed it's a police officer who fired that killer bullet against the orders and the policy of this government, then action will be taken. But of course, it could have been any other firearm holder because there are civilians also who are licensed to carry arms and they could take advantage of riots to cause deaths. Honorable Speaker, the third supplementary question was raised by the member for Samburu. And I want to assure the House, through you, Mr. Speaker, that the deaths that have been caused in Samburu and other parts of the country as a result of livestock rustling and banditry are regrettable. 2, we have had an operation going on there, but we continue to experience incidents of bandit attacks from time to time. Honorable Speaker, what has happened is that we have been able to dominate the permanent abodes where we suspected bandits were hiding whenever they steal livestock. And because of international standards on the use of force, that is the only reason we gave 24-hour ultimatum to any members of the civil population who could have been mixed up in these areas by way of being family members to the bandits, etc., to vacate. After that, we have been able to actually remove and dominate those areas and remove the threats that used to exist in those areas. But the spiral, what has happened is that during that window of notice we had given to be able to ensure that we don't have civilian casualties, some of these criminals could have mixed with the population. And because the security forces cannot be everywhere and guard every homestead, they are making sporadic raids, sometimes successful. But Mr. Speaker, we have prevented and thwarted and even recovered livestock numerous times on a daily basis. I am even willing to table within the time that we have had an operation in the north, how many livestock have been stolen in all those counties, how many have been recovered, and where, and how many are outstanding. We have not made full recoveries, and the reason is simple. That as soon as a raid is successful, the criminals divide the livestock into small numbers, 5, 10. So the recovery process is a bit slow, painful, but we've made some significant recoveries. I have evidence as late as yesterday, we have recovered livestock in Laikipia. So, Mr. Speaker, the challenge is still there. We do not want to deny that the challenge does not exist. And Mr. Speaker, this challenge has not started this year, last year, 5 years, 10 years. This is a problem that started as early as 1977 in some parts of these areas. We are doing everything possible to make sure that we have a final end of this problem. It cannot be done in a month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year, but we will reach there. It doesn't matter what it takes. We appeal for patience, we appeal for understanding, and we know that we will get around it as soon as we continue this domination of these areas where the bandits retreat when they steal livestock. In fact, Honorable Speaker, we are upscaling the numbers of security agencies we have. We are doubling them on Saturday. And as I've announced, this deployment will not cease with the end of the operation. Whenever the operation will be called off, the security agencies will remain there for as long as Kenya exists, to ensure that this problem does not recur. Because previously we have done an operation, as soon as there is a semblance of tranquility, we recall the security agencies. Honorable Speaker, therefore the supplementary question was raised by the member for Ugunja, the Honorable Pio Wandai. And I would like to assure the House, through you, Honorable Speaker, that the government has no double standards or does not respond to security threats based on where they happen. In the matters that the Honorable Wandai has raised, in fact, we acted even faster. But there was no question asked for us to report what we have done. So I want to confirm to the House, the Honorable Speaker, that the same measures we have applied in Chuka are the same measures that have applied in this instance. The Internal Affairs Unit, as we speak, is on the ground. The IPOA is also on the ground to provide independent investigations. So there are no double standards, and I think I can comprehensively say I am the minister who has been in most parts of the country, given that I've only served for slightly under 6 months. I've been in almost 70% of Kenya. So there cannot be double standards, and I don't know the last time I was near my home. So if there will be double standards, I'll be accused of not going home, Honorable Speaker, not the other way around. Honorable Speaker, with regard to the fifth one, the fifth supplementary question raised by the Honorable Kamuren, because the one by the Honorable Wandai about live bullets, I've already said the instructions are on the contrary, no live bullets. That's why you have seen, even in the most dramatic protests that we've had recently, we have not had casualties. We've not had deaths. And wherever deaths have occurred, like the Kisumu death and the one death in Kibera, the investigations will help us know whether this was a police gun or a civilian gun, because as I have said, both the police and civilians are licensed holders of firearms. If we establish anybody has violated the rules and the standing orders of the National Police Service, action will be taken. Honorable Speaker, finally, the supplementary question raised by the Honorable Kamren. I've been to Baringo, perhaps a little more than any other county, both overtly and covertly. I have been there visibly and invisibly. I know the complications and I understand the pain Honorable Kamren is going through. I share it and I know what he's going through today. We have discussed with the leadership of Baringo and the other stakeholders and our security commanders on the ground that we must come around this problem so that it's just beyond recovering livestock which was stolen today. For me, I believe we must have a way of ensuring that no livestock is stolen again in the first place. What are the measures we are putting in place? One, this afternoon, we have just approved an additional 200 police reservists for Baringo, 100 for Baringo North, 100 for Baringo South. Training is going to start before Friday because we believe the security agencies cannot be in every homestead, but the National Police Reservice can help mitigate a big way, and we have seen in other parts of the country, NPRs are helping stabilize situation in a big way. So we have approved that. I have provided the money for their training immediately. We will not be asking for any stakeholders to help us. We will do it, and that will stabilize. Number two, we are opening up 2 new security roads. We are moving equipment to make sure that we make security roads, which we have discussed, especially in Baringo North, and I am looking for an opportunity to have a discussion with Honorable Kamburen on 2 major roads that will take care of Arabal, Mukutane, Ngelecha, and that interface between Arabal Hills, Mukutane, and into the Laikipia Nature Conservancy, which is giving us a lot of problems because of the reasons which I've explained. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not there, but we are on the way there. I am going back to the operation area, and I am going to stick there a little longer. And I know between us and the political leadership, we'll find a lasting solution through security roads, through NPRs, and through intelligence-led investigations. Mr. Speaker, I think that's all for now. And once again, the Honorable Kamuren, the information you've given me will be acted on immediately I leave this chamber. Maybe we can talk and discuss how we can support you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Milemba, what is out of order? Give Omboko Milemba the mic.
With the humility, Honorable Speaker, the Waziri did dare both you and the House that he can table the recoveries in all those areas. And what we see in the media gives an impression that the government is not doing as much, like the bandits are doing so much. So could you please, Honorable Speaker, if I am in order, to order that the minister tables those documents immediately so that the people from those areas and wananchi in general can have confidence in the progress. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I think it's not papers but statistics that he promised to table. Minister, when we are done, you can pass on the document, the statistics to us. Now, honorable members, I still have members who have worked here, 8 in number, and on the screen I have 11 who are interested in this question. This is a trial run, like I said, and we said we'll be having about 3 supplementaries. But because the members who have come here can take judicial notice are mostly from the epicenter of the security challenges, indulge me to give them a minute each to ask 1 question each. I don't give you an opportunity to make a speech or to go to unhelpful tirades. Ask a supplementary to the minister, and I'll also ask him to oblige the House with short answers to save on our time. Member for Manyata. And I also notice, honorable members, honorable member for Manyata, you've seen me and you've said you want to ask a question about the Kianjokoma brothers. Now, that is totally unrelated to what is going on now. But you can ask. It is good if you have a question that you want to ask, file one and the minister will come and answer.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Why I wrote Kenjakoma brother is because we are still reeling in loss of those 2 young brothers and we have not recovered up to date. And Honorable Speaker, I first want to say thank you to Waziri because he has really shown a lot of restraint during maandamanos on the issue of using police force. Honorable Speaker, my question is on the investigation, efficiency of investigation of extrajudicial killing. And we have a case here where police body investigates itself. And I would like Waziri to kindly give us an overview because he has come in as a new blood with a very nice team that can help improve this issue. But Honorable Speaker, many extrajudicial killing that we have had, including the Yala River famous killings, Honorable Speaker, we would like to know what he is doing as a ministry in terms of policy level to improve on the efficiency of police investigation. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Turkana Central, 1 minute. Give the member for Turkana Central. There's a mic next to you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance, and also I join the rest of the members in thanking the CS for being the pioneer CS to appear before the House. First, as we speak here today, Honorable Speaker, there are families, more than 50 households that have lost their animals, their livestock, in the 1 a.m. raid in Turkana Central, in Turkana East, and in Turkana South. The animals are being driven towards Tiati as we speak, and we are still pursuing the bandits as we speak. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in Uganda, there are Turkanas, 32 of them, who are cordoned, wrapped up, and imprisoned through the court-martial in Uganda. One question that I want to ask is, why is the CS not able to implement such also in Kenya, where the caves, the gorges, and the places he mentioned in the Gazette notice, why is there no action in terms of cordoning and even wrapping up the bandits in those areas?
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Number 2, Honorable Chair.
1 question.
Okay.
You are done, Honorable Member. Baringo North. Yes, Honorable Junet. Hold on, Honorable. Give Honorable Junet the mic.
Hello, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for indulging me, Mr. Speaker. If I heard the member very clearly, he said, Mr. Speaker, that cows are being taken to Tiati as we speak now here.
No,
and the member of Parliament for Tiati is here, Mr. Speaker.
He said they're headed towards Tiati.
Towards Tiati, Mr. Speaker.
Which is different from being taken to
And the member of Parliament for Tiati is here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, could he explain this matter a bit further, whether the cows are going to his home, Mr. Speaker?
That is for comic relief. I invite the member for Baringo North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll utilize the 1 minute as follows. One, Mr. Speaker, this is the only cabinet secretary alive in security who has actually spent his energy and time and resources.
Ask your question.
So I want to thank him. Number one question, Mr. Speaker, my intelligence is that the bandit that was taken away in hospital in Iten is the one that killed my cousin. And he was taken by 10 bandits in an hospital in Iten, driven to wherever by the other bandits. Could the minister therefore tell us when that wounded bandit who was in hospital will be brought to book? And my last question, Mr. Speaker, I still have the 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. When is the minister going to operationalize the cassetted administrative units in Baringo North? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. There was a member who wanted to ask about the abduction of the injured bandit, so you don't have to rise to ask that question. Honorable Ariko. Ariko from Turkana, is it Loima?
South.
Turkana South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate this opportunity. I want to voice what is happening in Turkana South and Turkana East. Honorable Speaker, I request to ask a supplementary question with regards to the capacity of our security agencies. Honorable Speaker, what is happening in Turkana? We have experienced rampant raids, which we cannot explain the intention of these raids. Honorable Speaker, yesterday, my constituency experienced 3 raids, both in one ward called Katil Ward. It happened at 1 p.m. and again a repeated one at 5 a.m. Honorable Speaker, I wish to ask the Minister for Interior, CS Professor Kindiki, do we have a capacity as a country to handle this internal conflict? Because there has been a recurrent raids or conflict in this country. What are the plans now that our security agencies on the ground are experiencing shortage of resources to handle this conflict? Honorable Speaker, as at now, we have surveillance vehicles, we have KDF, we have a number of security agencies in Turkana South. But unfortunately, the response we are experiencing, this response can only happen during the daytime. The bandits have come up with a new strategy. And this strategy is only to raid at night when our security agents are sleeping. They cannot operate at night. Honorable Speaker, what is the take of our CS with regards to this matter? Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Speaker.
Hold on. Thank you, Honorable Ariko. Avoid the temptation to make a speech in the guise of a question. Honorable Kangogo.
Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Mr. Kindiki. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Cabinet Secretary, the National Police, Mr. CS, they don't have the capacity to handle the bandits in Kerio Valley. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, peacemakers from West Pokot and my constituents, Mr. Speaker, recovered about 7 heads of cattle, and they were taken to a Chieshu camp in a place called Kamele, so that to be handed over to the owners the following day. Mr. Speaker, that night, a daring bandits entered into a Chieshu camp and took away all the animals. On Friday, Mr. Speaker, the same thing with the Honorable Member for Baringo not talked about. A bandit who was arrested and taken to county headquarters in Iten, where we have about 100 policemen. The county headquarters, Mr. Speaker. And then 10 bandits came all the way about 200 kilometers away to rescue their own, and they successfully took away from the police. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the CS to confirm to this House, Mr. Speaker, that the National Police Service are unable to handle the bandits, and bring a motion to this House so that we can have the Kenya military or the KDF to take over the operations of bandits in Kerio Valley.
The women rep Turkana, she's left. Yes,
LHA. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. I only have a very brief question to the CS. Right now, we're being told that the person who was booked in at Iten County Referral was a bandit. Was there any OB elsewhere booked that particular person had previously been identified as a bandit or not? And then we would wish to know, was he taken by the police, or if the other people who came to the county referral and took him, if people are calling them bandits, can they name them by their names? So what I wish to know is, was there an OB elsewhere that Dennis was booked as a bandit? And the other ones who came to the rescue, were they police, or if as bandits? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Last, the Honorable Farah Maalim.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr.
Speaker,
Minister be ready to answer after Farah.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, be patient. If I'm satisfied there is enough interest, I'll give another round.
Mr. Speaker, this is, I must commend the government on this, because this is the first time the military has been used for a peacekeeping in this country where there was not a genocide the way it was done in Wagala, in Wajir in 1984. And my biggest worry was that this was going to be heavy, and it's going to be, military is not for this kind of things. But the fact that you have protected the lives of the innocents and you're just looking for the actual bandits themselves deserves a lot of compliment. My question, Mr. Speaker, is, Mr. Minister, have you tried some soft power? Have you tried to find out how you can deal with the elders, with the communities, and bring the communities together, as opposed to maintaining basically law and order in that place? Have you also tried to look at the social issues that underpin because there's only one community that everybody's complaining about, the Pokots. The Pokots are the poorest, they are the least educated, there's the least what they call infrastructure in order.
Order, Farah. Order. The member from Balambala, you are out of order. Can you conclude your question?
Mr. Speaker, we need to educate those children, Mr. Speaker. We have heard this before, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Minister, thank you very much. I've discussed some of these things with you, and I'm sure you're going to take them into consideration. But let's look at the social conditions in there, first of all. When you have a very poor social condition somewhere and everywhere around there has got some wealth, then of course they will go and try and go and attack those places. So my question is that let's look at soft power. It has worked in Northeastern Province, for your information. And also let's see how we can change the situation of the children of Pokot there. Thank you.
Who is raising a point of order? Moroto, what is your point of order? Because Pokots were mentioned?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you very much for giving me also this chance to say, when these people are talking, they are talking as if they are the holiest. When they are also killing. I lost about 5 people the other day and this morning in a Takwel.
Honorable
from
Moroto,
the other south.
I've given you a floor because you are challenging what Farah was saying. Now you are pursuing a totally different agenda. What was out of order that Farah was saying, that's the reason why I gave you the floor.
No, Mr. Speaker, I was just asking what I have in my mind. I was not following what Farah said. My question, I just want to, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to take time. I want to congratulate the CS, and I want to ask him to use the intelligence services. For these guys here speaking here, let them also be put in so that they can know how to control themselves down there on the ground. I come from Kapenguria. We used to have the problem between West Pokot and Trans Nzoia. But this time, there's nothing there. Because we met and we sat like leaders and worked together. These guys, now they're now talking here, and they cannot even go to ground, and they invite us to come and tell them what to do. Mr. Minister, start with these people. The members, put them in.
Honorable Moroto, you are totally out of order. You are imputing improper motives on your colleagues. Minister. Minister, if you can give quick, short answers to those short questions. We still have 4 questions for you, and we have done very poorly. 45 minutes on this one.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'll do as guided on the first matter. On allow me, Mr. Speaker, to say on the issue that was raised on a point of order about tabling statistics on recoveries of livestock. I didn't say I'm carrying the statistics. I said if the House directs, I can table them in the House even by Tuesday.
I heard you that way.
Yes,
you can,
Mr. Speaker, I can, if you direct,
yes.
I can table the statistics of recoveries from the time the operation began. In fact, we can even take it backwards a bit, 2 months before, and these 2 months when there have been an operation, and the recoveries and where and what is remaining. Mr. Speaker, also, I may be informed the House through you that I am informed that the High Court in Chuka has ruled in favor of the Prosecution Council and in favor of the state to cancel the anticipatory bail on the suspected killers. Mr. Speaker, other than that, let me mention or respond to the other issues quickly. We are strengthening the independent police oversight authority to supplement the work of the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service to provide an independent arm of the state that can help in dealing with extrajudicial killings. I confirm to the House, Mr. Speaker, and assure the House and the member for Manyata that all extrajudicial instances of extrajudicial killings are actively under investigation, and the policy of this administration is zero tolerance on extrajudicial killings. The police officers have been informed accordingly that we shall not protect any officer who misuses their firearm to kill people other than what the law provides on the use of lethal force in law enforcement. Honorable Speaker, with regard, and that includes the issue around the killing in Kianjokoma. Mr. Speaker, the second one, raised by the member for Baringo North, the Honorable Makilap, that yes, it's true there was that incident, and I want to tie that to the other supplementary question raised by the member for Elgeyo Marakwet, the women rep, because they are related. There was an incident at Iten Hospital. The suspect involved, the person involved is a suspected bandit because he had bullet wounds and he could not explain where he was shot, and he just came to look for treatment. And we believe also that the people who came to rescue him were criminals because they came through the fence of the hospital, so they just came perhaps to rescue one of their own who was hurt and could not explain. The reason why that happened, notwithstanding the presence of a few police officers who were on site at that time, was the determination by the commanding officer on site that a shootout inside that facility would have caused fatalities on patients, and that gave a leeway for the rescue to succeed. I want to confirm to the House, through you, Mr. Speaker, that this person has been on police radar even before this attack. We are on him. We have some leads. We believe we shall arrest him as soon as possible. Honorable Speaker, the other issue was raised by the member for Turkana South on the capacity of our police agencies to maintain law and order. Honorable Speaker, I am persuaded that Kenya has enough police officers and enough wherewithal to handle all our challenges, including the challenges we are facing in northern Kenya. However, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it is the position of this government that there is need to reform our national security organs to make sure that they respond better to our threats. That is why one of the first acts His Excellency the President undertook was to institute a presidential task force on reforming the National Police Service, which is an admission that there is need to reform around command, around efficiency, and around operational sophistication to make sure that the gaps that we continue to exist to encounter in our law enforcement of our internal security are resolved. Very shortly, that task force will present its findings. The government has committed to implement all the recommendations without exception that will come from that task force, including changing the entire command of the National Police Service, the terms under which one becomes a commander of any level, tying command to success and results and deliverables, so that you don't become a county commander, a regional commander for life, and there are no results. People are still having insecurity in your area. Make it time-bound and tied to results. And even that reform, even as we wait for those recommendations, we are continually addressing command issues to ensure efficiency. Even this afternoon, I think the government and the National Police Service will be announcing changes in the top command of the National Police Service, starting with the appointment of the Deputy Inspector General of the Kenya Police Service, whose recruitment process is complete. And we have had a gap there for a long time because the immediate former Deputy Inspector General of Police was indisposed, but from this afternoon, that gap is going to be filled, and that will help the Inspector General perhaps to respond a little better and quicker, even as we wait for the other reforms. Honorable Speaker, I have one other last one, the one that was raised around the issue of what measures we are taking to make sure that the gaps we are having are sealed. One, the House may want to know that in 2014, the government started a police equipment modernization program, which ran for 3-4 years, but stopped after that. It was to the tune of 10 billion shillings a year. It really helped to improve the security at that time. But due to the collapse of that funding program, we have had issues around our ability to make Kenya safer. And what this administration has done is to revive the police equipment modernization program. And for the next 3 years, the government of Kenya will spend 20 billion shillings to ensure that we modernize our equipment. I am happy to return here if the House requires so in 3 months, because by that time, in 3 months from now, I expect to have revived the police air wing, which is completely dead. I intend to have acquired at least 3 gunship helicopters for the National Police Service so that we stop depending on the military, because they also have a national duty to perform. I intend to acquire some unmanned armored vehicles, UAVs or drones, and going forward, increasingly, we are going to yield the benefits of technology-driven, intelligence-driven operations. I am happy to come back and report progress on this after a few months on the request of the House. I think, Honorable Speaker, that is it. Maybe if I've left anything, I'll be reminded, but...
Only one, far as soft power engaging...
Soft power, I agree. Honorable Speaker, I agree. Thank you for the reminder, sir. We believe that the long-term solution of this problem is not just the hardware. But we have made a policy decision that before we can engage on long-term solutions, including issues of economic empowerment and social amenities, we must silence the guns first. We must do whatever it takes to make it rare that there is an attack, there is there's gunfire everywhere. And after that, now we can sit down and ask ourselves, why is it that this problem is recurring all the time? The ministry has developed a master plan in conjunction with other stakeholders, including the military, for infrastructural development of northern Kenya, which will begin from December this year, rebuilding schools, providing amenities, and also engaging communities for peace building, and that will now come with both disarmament, forceful and voluntary. But first, before we engage in any of these programs, Mr. Speaker, we are persuaded that we must silence the guns. As soon as we acquire the equipment we are looking at as the National Police Service, there will be a lot of change. But even as we speak, we have made a lot of changes in evacuating the gorges, the valleys, and the hideouts. And the attacks that are happening now are attacking in the criminals who may have used the window we had given for evacuation of civilians so that we comply with international law. That allowed a few, in our view, to escape and mingle with populations. And they are the ones giving us problems, which we are resolving through NPR and through the technology that we are acquiring in the next few weeks or months. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, I know there's much more interest on this, but we have to move to the next question. Question 074 of 2023. Member for Gilgil, Mother Wangari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 74 of 2023 to the Cabinet Secretary of Interior and National Administration. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why there is a shortage of birth registration materials, also known as B1 forms, in health facilities across the country? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why mothers in public hospitals, especially those on the national government Linda Mama program, are subjected to unnecessary detention after discharge as a result of unregistered births of their babies due to the above-mentioned shortage, yet it is the duty of the government to provide the B1 forms? And finally, what steps has the ministry taken to ameliorate the situation and ensure that mothers who are due for discharge are not forced to incur any additional bills due to the unjust detention in hospitals owing to the government's incapacity to promptly register births as a result of the lack of birth registration forms? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a soft question.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, we admit that we have challenges in the availability of Form B1s, and this is a problem that started last year around April 2022, and the challenge is arising from the capacity at the government press. The government press has not been modernized for a very long time. The equipment they have and the human resource capacity does not allow them to print enough security documents, including these forms, quick enough to meet the rising demand. The written response which I filed before this House, Mr. Speaker, I have attached 3 letters which we have written as a ministry to the government printer, requiring them to increase the speed at which they are supplying us with Form B1s. I can report to the House, Honorable Speaker, that the demand right now is the supply is 50 books of 400 forms per week, but the demand is over 1,000 books of that size. So you can see we are supplying less than, almost a third, less than half of the requirement. What measures are we taking? Other than writing letters, we have changed the management of the government printer, because we also would believe that part of the challenge is the innovation of the leadership at that unit to provide off-balance sheet, off-budget solutions to some of the capacity challenges we are having. And I can report comfortably, after changing the management of the government press in the last 2 months, the new government printer has tabled, and I have approved, an equipment modernization program which will not even involve government spending any money, because it's through a lease of equipment where over time we will pay whoever owns those machines, and after 10 years we hand over the machines to him. That is the solution that helped us with police vehicles when the police leasing, vehicle leasing program was initiated. So we believe very soon that will be tackled. But in the meantime, we have asked the CRS, that is the Civil Registry Department or Unit, Civil Registry Service Department, to give the government printer the projections for the rest of the year. And we are working to see how, pending the modernization program I'm talking about, that demand can be met as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, finally, on that issue, I want to assure the House again that perhaps when I come back, the members will have positive feedback on this service, because we believe the registration of the births of our children and the deaths of our departed persons should not be aggravated further by absence of documents. The member for Gilgil has also asked whether the detention of young mothers in hospitals, especially under the Linda Mama program, is linked to the shortage of these booklets. The government's position is that this is not the case for two reasons, Honorable Speaker. Reason number one is that birth registration is free of charge, so it cannot be the purpose that makes a mother to be detained in hospital beyond the time she's supposed to be released. Secondly, why we believe this is not the cause is because the registration of birth is allowed to take place within a period of 6 months after birth. So long as it's done within 6 months, it's lawful. So it cannot be the basis of saying, we hold a mother in hospital who has given birth because of lack of these booklets. That notwithstanding, when I got this parliamentary question, I have directed the civil registrar to provide us with a solution. Even as we wait for this equipment, we need to find a solution so that should the House require me to provide an update in the next few months, because the equipment program may take around 6 months because of the nature, the financing and the contractual arrangements, we will have an answer. Finally, Honorable Speaker, is that we have shortage of personnel. That's another challenge we are having in that department. We have only about 286 civil registrars for the whole country against the establishment of approximately 1,400, which has been approved by the Public Service Commission. We are trying to see how, even if we don't fill the entire complement, the Public Service Commission can help us perhaps hire a few more in the financial year that starts June 2023.
Majority Leader, Wangari, you want to have your first shot? Let Majority Leader go first. I'll give you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, may commend the CS for being the first CS to appear in this session. But Honorable Speaker, you will, and the House will appreciate that part of the reasons why we wanted CSs to appear before the House is for them to answer to questions that are of concern to the people, but also to use this opportunity to expound on government policy, on what government is doing. Honorable Speaker, it has been my belief in the past, and maybe something the CS will work to change that belief in me, that the personification of bureaucracy in government and the personification of liturgy in government operations resides in the Ministry of Interior. And if you listened to the answers pertaining to the issues to do with bandits, and even now when I listen to the CS answer the question on slow printing of forms, I hear the CS telling us forms are slowly being printed by the government printer because of challenges of modernization in the government printer's office, challenges of employment, there are low staff levels in the department. When I also listen to the president who has hired the CS, the president is talking about digitization. So I really want to know from the CS, where do you sit as a cabinet secretary in terms of implementing that policy on the digitization of government services? Because you cannot be talking about low levels of staff while we are also complaining of a huge wage bill in the public service, when the president is telling us about digitization and the CS is telling us that he's modernizing printing. Shouldn't we then be getting this B1 form in a digital format? And I can see the PS Citizen Services is seated there. The PS Citizen Services have engaged with him on a unique identifier system that seeks to capture data of newborns digitally, electronically. But now the CS is telling us about modernizing the government printer, hiring another person at the government printer who will be more efficient, leasing equipment instead of buying new equipment. CS, you must tell us, where do you sit? Are you aligned to the president's agenda to digitize, or are you not? It is that simple. Cabinet Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Wangari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was hoping that this would be a softer question because it has no guns, but I can see the guns are already coming out. But I want to just also thank the CS, congratulate him for being the first one in this very unique arrangement where we get answers firsthand instead of what we used to go about last parliament, 11th parliament, chairs who had no substantial answers. I have listened to the CS very carefully, and Mr. Speaker, this small matter of birth registration may look small, but the inconveniences it gets to people and to the public at large are huge. You want to take your child to grade 1 to register for NEMIS, you need a birth certificate. You want to get a passport, you will need a birth certificate. So, Mr. Speaker, I am actually perturbed to hear the CS say that he has written letters to the government printer, who is also anchored under the same ministry. I do not have the advantage of their nexus, so I will not speak to the letters. But my question is, follow-up question is, what are the timelines that we are looking at? And the reason I ask that, Mr. Speaker, is because shortages with birth registration, with death registration, shortages with IDs, printing materials are treated as normal. So my first question is, how does the civil registration services sit in the ministry in terms of budget allocation, in terms of autonomy, in terms of being able to run these services, Mr. Speaker? Number 2.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, this is my question, and you did very badly with that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll try to be very quick. The other one is the fact that the annexure between the Linda Mama parents, Mr. Speaker, and Linda Mama women. I am a practicing mother. I have given birth in the not so long past, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you, whether you give birth in a public...
I didn't know being a mother is a practice.
Yeah, it's practicing. It's still ongoing. It's still ongoing, Mr. Speaker. But I'm just confirming, because I have gone through it, I know whether you give birth in the public hospitals or the private hospitals, you must be issued with that short pink paper that is called a notification, Mr. Speaker. That notification, you can use it in 6 months. But hospitals, and scrupulous hospitals, Mr. Speaker, are detaining mothers so that they are there for longer, so that the bills accumulate to pay. But that pink paper, even for home deliveries, Mr. Speaker, is gotten from the B1 paper that I'm asking about. So that is their nexture with the Linda Mama. And finally, Mr. Speaker, last parliament, I brought a motion here. It was overwhelmingly approved because many members, including Muhaya MP, the Northern Kenya, Mr. Speaker, do not have civil registration centers. So we requested, and this House passed, that we establish in every sub-county a civil registration center. So I'll be very keen to know what is the progress on that motion, even as we implement, Mr. Speaker, or does it have to wait longer? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, my question to the CS, who is a fellow left-handed, so I'm sure he'll think quick on his feet, is in relation to single mothers. The issue that most single mothers experience when they are transitioning from birth notification to birth certificate is that they're not able to get birth certificates for their children because in most instances they don't have IDs of the father. So my question to the CS is, what support can you give to the single mothers to ensure that they get birth certificates for their children, because they need this to be able to process medical insurance for their children? Thank you.
Dr. Nyikal, if you can be as brief as that, it will be very helpful. I take 4 and close the chapter to the next question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I also appreciate the Minister for being the first to answer questions here. Mr. Minister, the question was the Cabinet to explain why mothers in public hospitals, then especially Mama Linda, you therefore, okay, Linda Mama, okay, why mothers in public hospitals, especially those
out a personal secret.
Yes. Why those on Linda Mama program are delayed? The implication of the question, Mr. Speaker, is that actually in private hospitals, this is not a problem. And those mothers who are also paying directly is not a problem. This is not in line with the minister's answer, which is that there is a shortage of forms at the printing level. If the problem was at printing level, then obviously this should affect all mothers, whether private, whether Linda Mama. So that's what is the issue there. And also, the number of children that are born annually is a factor that is publicly known. It's about between 1.5, around 1.5 million. And the minister is saying he needs information on this number. So if that's not satisfactory, can we have clarification on those 2 points, Mr. Speaker?
Thank you. Dr. Bukose. If you ask just one question,
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary and congratulate him for being the first. Mr. Speaker, CS, my question is about the Huduma number, Huduma cards, Huduma number. What happened to them? Because at one time, a lot of colossal sums of money were used to procure the Huduma number. Is it still there? What happened to it? Thank you.
Mary Emase.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for finally noticing us around this corner. Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize on the issue of decentralizing issuance of birth certificates. Mr. Speaker, it is a very serious issue. My mothers go to another sub-county to look for birth certificates. And sometimes they are told those forms are not there. They have to travel so many kilometers severally. So I just want to emphasize that there is need to have a center in every sub-county. And Mr. Speaker, speaking of security, because I did not have time to ask, I just want to add one. That sometimes we even use our assistant chiefs and chiefs actually to collect those birth certificates, take them to the center. And I want to just request the CS kindly. Across the country, we have administrative units where the chiefs or assistant chiefs have passed on or have retired. They have not been replaced. A number of administrative units, like even divisions like in Teso South, were created. They have not yet been operationalized. Kindly, can you do something about it? Because they play a critical role in security. They help us with the birth certificates. They help us in even acquiring IDs. If there is no assistant chief or a chief to do the vetting, then our people are not getting these very necessary services on time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Now you have resorted to raising your hands like in a classroom. The member, I can't see that far. The honorable member from, is it Mandera? The one next in front of Emase. Sorry, honorable member, I can't see you clearly because of the lighting. Honorable Sane. 1 minute, Honorable Sane. I couldn't see you clearly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your hand was up for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can use my colleague's mic. I come from a county which is over 56,000 square kilometers. I do appreciate the work of the PS. For the first time since independence, he has posted at least death and birth officers last week. But the rest of the sub-counties do not have officers. Forget about forms. So in as much as I appreciate Honorable Wangari's question, when is the Cabinet Secretary posting all the officers in all the sub-counties of Wajir, which is twice the size of Rwanda as a country? Thank you.
CNN, Guna. One question.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, some members here are very lucky. I am talking of the new constituencies which were created in 2013. In my constituency, Mwingi West, there is no single registration center. on this. What is the ministry doing to ensure that these constituencies, at least members don't have to go to other constituencies to access the same service? Thank you.
Minister, you may answer those, and just before you do that, allow me, in case we have held these students for too long, we acknowledge the presence of students from Mamangina Senior School in Kikuyu, Kiambu. They are in the public gallery, and in the speaker's gallery we have St. Albert the Great, Siakago Boys High School, Bere North in Embu. You are welcome to the House of Parliament. Minister Hall, I give a member for Lamu East, and who is out of order, Madam Chelule, to run across the floor with your hand raised.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia nafasi, nami ni muulize waziri ana mipango gani kwa wakazi wanaoishi mbali na ambapo hawana maofisa wala hawana hizo ofisi. Mtu kama wa Kiunga inamgharimu shilingi 4,000 kutoka Ishakani mpaka Kiunga shilingi 300, Kiunga Tumkokoni ndio upande boat ni shilingi 700, boti ya Mirao ukipanda from Mkokoni kufika Mokoe ambao kuna ofisi ni shilingi 3,000. Njia moja ni 4,000 kurudi 4,000, 8,000 kwenda kutafuta birth certificate. Sehemu kama hizo una mipango gani ambao hazina hizo ofisi? Paka tuje maeneo bunge mengine ndo tutafute hizo huduma. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Let's have the answers now. Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, one of the priorities for us as a ministry is institutional reforms within the security sector, immigration, citizen services, prisons, correctional services. As I began by saying earlier this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, we admit that the rate at which and the efficiency at which government services are being rendered is not satisfactory, and therefore we have considered that institutional reform, organizational culture change is a priority for all the departments within our ministry. I therefore want to accept the critical sentiments that have been raised about our performance, and we are working very hard to make sure that we do better. And going forward, this administration will be more than happy to report progress made on each and every sector. We have instituted baseline surveys for each and every service that we are offering, so that every 3-6 months we can be able to track progress. Having said so, Honorable Speaker, the Leader of Majority did ask whether we are remaining with the printing of documents or we are going digital. Honorable Speaker, the policy of government is to digitize all the services that it offers. I can report, as we speak, 5,771 services are partially digitized, out of which 3,293 services across government have been digitized end to end, and the other 2,498 are not partial, they are not end to end. The total is 5,771. 2,498 partially, 3,293 completely. So that is the policy. Digitization, Honorable Speaker, will come with its challenges, but it's a decision this government has taken to proceed that way. However, Honorable Speaker, that does not take the words that I spoke earlier, that still, as we wait towards complete digitization, we must continue producing and giving services, because Our mothers are still giving birth as we speak, as we wait for this process to be consummated completely. And therefore, we are intended to make sure we satisfy the demand. I want to assure members we'll make progress. The Honorable Member for Gilgil asked for timelines. On 27th of March this year, which is 3 weeks ago, we initiated a rapid response initiative at the CRS, and therefore we're expecting 90 days. That issue of shortage to be addressed, even as we wait for digitization, as well as the issue of equipment modernization. Honorable Speaker, a question has been raised on remote and far-flung areas. The example given by the member for Lamu East. I'll be visiting Lamu East next week for 2 days, and I think the example the member has given is an urgent priority, and I think we should be able to open a registration center in Kiunga as a matter of priority, because the need as described here is quite unique comparing to other parts of the country. I want to commit to the member and to the House that we're going to open a registration center there. Honorable Speaker, also, even as we continue with the digitization, we will still need registration centers. At the moment, out of the 369 sub-counties, in implementation of the motion passed by this House earlier on, we have civil registration centers in 137 sub-counties, meaning we are less than half. But we are continuing to open new ones on a needs basis. My PS for Citizen Services, I sent him to open one in Kajiado 1 month ago, and I think he's opening another one in Kobo, I think in a month's time. And this will be resolved as we continue to make sure that every sub-county has a civil registry. Honorable Speaker, also the issue raised by the member from Mwingi West, I think Mwingi West is also an area which requires special measures, and I think we'll put it in our priority. Subject to resources, we will ensure that an area like Mwingi gets that center also opened. I want to commit to the House that at least the ones that have been identified on the floor of this House by members, in the next 2 months, there will be a civil registration center, including the one raised about Wajir. Honorable Speaker, on this question and earlier on, a question was raised about administrative units. About 80 sub-counties were gazetted just before last election, and they are not operational. We do not have the resources to operationalize all those sub-counties. So what we have decided is to stagger the operationalization of all the gazetted sub-counties in a 3-year period, starting June this year. And the criteria we will use is the nature of hardship and inconveniences to service delivery, as well as regional balance, so that the first criteria of the 20 to 25 sub-counties to be operationalized this financial year starting June will take care of regions, but also hardship, size, population, and all the other factors. We'll come up with a criteria which will be fair and which can be shared to members if they want to know what criteria we will use to identify those that will come first, and then second, and then the third financial year. Honorable Speaker, I can also report to the House that areas where assistant chiefs and chiefs have not been recruited, my PS for internal security has already approved the recruitment process, and therefore we expect all those positions to be filled in the next 90 days across the country. Honorable Speaker, then I think again a question was asked between technology and what we are doing in the old fashion. Going forward, before cabinet is a policy brief, is a cabinet brief, which is under consideration on the UPI, the Universal Personal Identifier. And I think in the next 1 or 2 weeks it will be disposed of, so that we migrate, we converge two things. One, that every child in Kenya gets a universal personal identifier at birth, which becomes their number in school, their whatever number they require. And when they are 18, that number is the ID number. Then at the same time and in parallel, another universal personal identifier for adults who are getting IDs. So you have a universal personal identifier at birth, and for the existing, because that one, by the time the first adult will use the UPI, it will be 18 years from when we commence. But in the meantime, we are migrating, we are considering, subject to approval by cabinet, migrating the current ID we have into a fourth generation ID, which is the UPI for adults, which of course will take away the question of Huduma number, which was not solving the kind of problems that we intend to solve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, about single mothers who cannot produce the fathers of the children's IDs.
Honorable Speaker, it is no longer a requirement of the law for a registration of a child to include both parents. It is not a
Member for Mandera South.
I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 105 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary, 1, state the measures being taken to establish civil registration centers in every sub-county in the country so as to ease access to civil registration services? 2, state the measures the ministry is putting in place to immediately set up a civil registration at Elwak and Kutulo sub-counties in Mandera South to serve the huge population in the region, considering that the closest civil registration center to Mandera South constituency is located nearly 220 kilometers away from Mandera town and also serves Mandera North, Mandera West, Banisa, and Lafe constituencies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, this is nearly similar to the question of Mother Wangari, so we shouldn't spend too much time on this. Answer the question, and I'll allow one bite by the member who asked and one more member. Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just as I have told the House on the issue of operationalization of the administrative units that are gazetted and not operational, we are finalizing a criteria which will help us implement the recommendations of this House in the motion which was cited by the Honorable Member for Gilgil, to make sure that every sub-county has a civil registry. So what we've done is that we have taken the remainder of all, we have taken the list of all the sub-counties that do not have a civil registry, and we want to implement, because there are quite many, unlike the sub-counties, we want to implement that motion in the next 5 years, but based on a criteria. That criteria, just as in the first case with sub-counties, will be as follows. First of all, those that will get centers, because right now, Mr. Speaker, if I can explain this for half a minute. At the moment, we are opening these centers on the request of individual members of parliament. Like I cited the Kajiado North, it was a request by the MP. I cited Imenti South. The member for Imenti South, who I can confirm, is the one who wrote and requested for a center. And we felt that perhaps we should have an objective criteria so that, again, we make sure that that implementation of the recommendation of this House is done fairly, equitably, and making sure that every part of the country is covered. So the criteria will involve, first of all, regional diversity, so that we pick in the first year, every region of our country will be represented in those that will be open this year, but also special and unique circumstances like topography, hardship, population, and so forth. Going forward, to avoid, complaints, public complaints, at a future date, now that this tradition of ministers appearing before the House has begun, I'll be more than happy later on, when the opportunity happens, to provide an update to the House where we are, the criteria we are using. By that time we'll have adopted it, and then the rollout, to ensure that no part of the country is favored and no part of the country will be left out. In fact, on the Wajir issue, generally northern Kenya, upper eastern, upper coast, pastoral areas generally, I think special attention will be given to those areas, because I have been there and I know it is quite challenging when one has to travel, as was the case raised by the member for Lamu East. You use 10,000 shillings to go and look for a birth certificate. Another Kenyan is using matatu and paying 50 bob to and fro. But all these factors will be taken into consideration, because we want an equitable country and a country where public policy is informed by objective criteria. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I thank the Minister for the answer. Probably most of the answers that I would have wanted had been preempted in the previous question.
I feel the same.
Yeah. So, but I will say, first of all, we have dwelled so much on birth certificates, but a functioning civil registration center and service actually has three very important events. That is registration of births, registration of marriages, and also registration of deaths. And even if we go digital, Mr. Speaker, sir, even if we go digital, you know, registration alone is not enough, because the civil registration service has to provide the certificate as a proof of that registration. And that is why we are asking for physical facility and officers who would be in those centers. To put what I'm particularly in my constituency, when I mentioned Elwak and I mentioned Kutulo, those are two sub-counties in one constituency, vastly, spread apart. Mandera town, where the civil registration center is, the only civil registration center we have in Mandera County, is 220 kilometers from Elwak. And I'm sure the cabinet secretary knows the problems that are there traveling between Elwak and Mandera, especially with the menace from those bad guys from across the border. That road has been a very risky road, especially when you are traveling between Elwak and Mandera, and also between Kutulo and Elwak. So you travel 220 kilometers, and the only bus...
Honorable member, you are now making a speech.
Okay, the only bus that you use for transport between two is the bus that comes from Nairobi. That's what you wait for, so that you can hike it to Mandera. So my plea to the cabinet secretary is that a sub-county like Elwak and Kutulo, which are some of the oldest in that region, surely require civil registration centers very urgently, because of the importance of those certificates that the Honorable Mother Wangari had mentioned earlier. The NEMIS. If you want to travel with your child from Mandera now, you cannot take that child on the flight if they don't have a birth certificate. And this all is a challenge, and we require those documents in Mandera. I think the answers that have been given, the usual answers that we hear when government gives answers to lack of facilities, lack of officers, lack of funding. These are answers which...
Honorable Harrow, you are debating.
Okay, sir.
I gave you an opportunity to ask a supplementary if you feel your question was not sufficiently answered.
So what the Honorable Cabinet Secretary mentioned that some of the initiatives come from the MPs. And I have the benefit of having a copy of his written answer. And he had mentioned of partnership between the Member of Parliament and the national government offices on the ground. I would want to know, what would that partnership look like? How does it manifest itself? Because we would really want to initiate those initiatives and see what that partnership can do to help our people on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Rindikiri, one question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the PS for the confidence he has answered our questions, but I have a problem, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the issuance of passports. There are some questions that I think that form need to be reviewed, particularly on the fathers, mothers, and even the children, some of who could be deceased. I don't see the relevance for that. Two, there is so many migrants who have come to this country purporting to be experts in various fields. They have been given permit to work in Kenya. Even some of them have no technical expertise, taking jobs for Kenyans who are even very qualified. What is this that the ministry is doing to ensure that we don't have the hawkers coming here purporting to be expert in various fields? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Julius Sunguli, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to ask the Minister to confirm whether the answer he gave about birth certificates also applies to forms for registration of persons. Because as far as Kilgoris is concerned, there has been no registration, fresh registrations of persons for nearly 6 months now, and the reason being that there are no forms. What is the Minister going to do to ensure that those forms are available? And attached to that, Mr. Speaker, if the Minister could confirm, could explain what he means by operationalizing new administrative areas when in fact it is members of parliament through CDF who build these facilities. All he does is to post people there. And could he remove Kilgoris from, Transmara West district from those districts that require vetting, because we do not border any international, we don't have an international border. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kilome.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. Mine is just very brief, and this one goes direct to the CS. I had a serious meeting with the CS for the last, like around 60 days, and they promised me that this is Kilome constituency, Bwana CS. You promised me I will get a registrar in my constituency because I already have the office. So I would just want to make a follow-up on the same. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Last on this, Johanna Ngeno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wish to congratulate the CS for the questions and answers he has made. Mr. Speaker, mine is just almost on the same issue of registration centers. Mr. Speaker, I would wish the CS to consider whether in those areas where there are no registration centers, to make mobile registration so that those people who cannot, or by the time the government puts money to build offices and send officers there, people should be able to access those particular registration centers. Speaker, and secondly,
one at a time.
Speaker, secondly, on the question of boundaries, areas that are bordering international countries, where we have serious vetting and actually denying people to get their IDs, can they also remove Mwadikiri from that list of constituencies which are bordering either Tanzania or other countries? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Can we stop here on this question, members? Yes, Minister, answer those supplementaries.
Sorry, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the last issue, which has been raised by a member for Emuru Dikil and another member earlier on, the government takes the view and has decided that vetting is a discriminative process which exposes citizens from certain parts of the country to unduly difficult procedures. Of course, the reason why this policy has been there is for good reasons. It's for our national security. Where you have large threats, then you need to be a bit careful so that you minimize security threats through the registration of our citizens. However, we have come up with a modality of ensuring that all critical documents from passports, IDs, birth certificates, all critical documents must be supplied within 21 days, irrespective of where the applicants come from. Where possible, they can come out in 3 days, in 7 days, in 10 days, but no Kenyan should wait for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years to get an ID or a passport simply because they come from a certain part of the country. Therefore, within the next 3 months, the policy of vetting in all the citizen registration services will be abolished and replaced with a new way of ensuring that all registration documents are achieved by all Kenyans within a maximum of 21 days. Honorable Speaker, the issue of vetting, actually, I was in Moyale and I came across Kenyan youths who had been waiting for IDs for 3 years and 2 months. About 10 young people from Moyale. They applied when they were 18, now they are 21, and they are still waiting. Why? Vetting. We are still, NIS and other institutions are still verifying certain things. This is unacceptable. We are going to abolish that. Honorable Speaker, the member for Kilome, it is true, I agree, Honorable Speaker, I committed to the member who came to my office that we will post a civil registration officer there, but I asked him to support, and that also ties with the question the member asked, what kind of support is this the CS is talking between the national government and CDF? Where the member through CDF is able to obtain consent to build the office, then we give staff and of course the resources that are tied to making sure the office is operational. And that is what we are calling operationalization for the member for Kilgoris. Because even if it's built by CDF, CDF is also public money, okay? But the unit is not operational because the Ministry of Interior must post an officer and give that officer money in the budget to run the office. You can build an office and it's not operational because, one, there is no staff, or you have staff who have no budget to run the office. Honorable Speaker, therefore, in response to the member for Emuru Dikil, member for Kilgoris, and other members, vetting will not only be abolished in those constituencies but across the country. And for the member for Kilome, now that the office is complete, I will post a civil registrar in Kilome on Monday. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Joseph Gitari, you have 2 questions in a row. Minister, indulge him to ask both at the same time. They seem to be related to security issues. So ask question 106 and 107.
Together.
Together.
Thank you, Speaker. I wish to ask question 106 of 2023 where I'm asking the Cabinet Secretary.
Minister, note that there are two questions coming at the same time.
Number one, clarify whether occurrence book numbers OB number 10-11-01-2022 at 18:05 hours and 07/9/05/2022 at 11:25 hours reported at Kagumo Police Station, and OB number 14/24/9/2022 and OB number 09/10/12/2021 reported at Kavonge Police Post in the name of one Laban Rukenya Munene related to the same person. Number two, explain under what circumstances did the above mentioned person with all the 4 entries in the occurrence book has only been arrested once and failed to attend court for case number 3356/22 despite having a warrant of arrest in his name. Number three, state the reason as to why the said person was released from Kagumo Police Station in September 2022 despite having serious pending cases against him. Mr. Speaker, I also want to ask question 107/2023, whereby I'm asking the Cabinet Secretary to explain the measures the Ministry has instituted to address the emergence of criminal gangs and groups with terror rings affiliated to terror groups in the country, including actions being taken against those that are facilitating with links or sponsoring such groups. Number two, describe the strategies the ministry has put in place to deal with the emergence of criminal gangs in major towns of Nakuru, Nairobi, Mombasa, and other towns, in particular criminal gangs known as Wechame militia group that is terrorizing residents in Kagumo town in Kirinyaga Central. Number three, explain the security measure that the minister has put in place to address rampant insecurity incidences in Kirogoya town, especially along Meringaere Road and Kemore area. I submit.
Minister, I think those are related questions from the same area, and we can be done in 20 minutes on this.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the question raised by the member for Kirogoya Central regarding the suspect Laban Rukenya Munene, I would like to respond as follows. That yes, the four entries to the OB at Kagumo Police Post and Kabonde Police Post relate to one person, namely Laban Rukenya Munene. This is a suspect of crime who is awaiting prosecution before the Baricho law courts, and is accused of stealing on various dates. He stole from a victim called Mary Karuana Gashoki, twice actually. On a third occasion, the same Rukenya, the same Munene stole from a Mr. John Rukenya, and on another occasion he stole from a Miss Jemima Wangeshi. The suspect was arrested on 3rd of April 2022 and arraigned before the Baricho Law Court under criminal case number 356 of 2022. However, the suspect was released by court on bail. The suspect subsequently jumped bail and is on the run. And the government and the prosecution and security agencies have no control over who the court gives bail or not. So the prosecution tried to oppose the granting of bail, but the court ruled against the prosecution. The bail was granted, and when the suspect was admitted to bail, he jumped bail and is now on the run. The prosecution went back to court and obtained a warrant of arrest, and we are still looking for this suspect. The security agencies are yet to track him down, but I want to assure the member for Kirinyaga Central and the House that criminal investigations, criminal matters are never closed, and therefore we are actively looking for these suspects with a view to arresting them in line with the arrest warrants in our possession, and also to produce him in court for prosecution. Honorable Speaker, with regard to the next question from the same member, parliamentary question number 107 of 2023, I would like to respond as follows. That sometimes at the middle of last year, there was an increasing incidents. There were increasing incidents of urban crime. The most affected urban center was Nairobi. And by the time this administration was sworn into office, around mid-September, there was a huge crisis in this city arising out of terror gangs of youths, knife-wielding, some armed with pistols, other crude weapons, terrorizing people, robbing people day and night in many parts of the country. We have been able to contain that problem in Nairobi drastically by change of command, but also by change of strategy and deployment, by using special units within the National Police Service. And by and large, I think I am happy that crime has come down by nearly more than 60%, if not more, based on the statistics we are getting, and that matter is under control. But we are also aware there have been some criminal gangs terrorizing people in Nakuru, a gang called Confirm. We have been able to neutralize that threat because 3-4 months ago it was a real menace. We've been able to arrest the ringleaders, and some of them have been arraigned in court. And right now, I think the situation is under control, and I can also report in the process we had to change again the command of Nakuru County to make sure that we inject fresh leadership and a new team, because sometimes when officers stay in one area for some time, they become a bit lethargic. And that's why we have a policy that no officer, no commander should stay in one station for more than 3 years, to allow them not only serve the whole country and the variety of the entire country, but also to ensure that they don't get involved in local communities and start being lethargic and not become the professionals they are supposed to be. The strategies, therefore, that we are applying to deal with this problem of organized gangs include intelligence-led investigations, which are working very well. But unfortunately, the downside, Honorable Speaker, is that intelligence-led investigations take a little time. But whenever we zero in on a suspect, we have enough evidence, enough intelligence, enough evidence that can be able to help us deal with the core of that issue. In fact, this is the approach we are using in the area issue of banditry. As we speak, we have on our radar very, very high-ranking suspects within the banditry networks. We believe we have enough information, and perhaps once we start striking on the network, the thing will come down. But you know, we needed to take a bit of time to be sure that we have the right information that can help us nip the problem in the bud. Other than that, we are investing heavily, Honorable Speaker, on special units, so that to allow police on general duties to concentrate on general maintenance of law of order. But where you have organized crime, organized gangs, banditry, terrorism, trafficking in drugs, and other sophisticated crimes, we are using formed units, including the Rapid Deployment Unit, including ASTU for livestock, the Anti-Stock Theft Unit, including SOG, the Special Operation Group, which has done a great job in neutralizing some of the most complicated security threats, especially in the counter-terrorism effort, and also including SWAT, which is the Special Weapons team that deal with urban close-range crime prevention and crime combating. And we have SWAT teams for men and women officers who do not operate in uniform, and they are really helping us a big deal in containing urban crime. And based on the information that the member has raised about Kagumo town, I am going to personally discuss with our police command in Kagumo so that we put in place a program to make sure that, as we have done in Nairobi, as we have done increasingly in Nakuru, we also exterminate that criminal gang before it takes over Kagumo town, because this country must be a country where citizens are free and they are not living under the terror of criminals. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, CS, for the elaborate answer for the two questions. Mr. Speaker, this question came a while back, and I want to confirm to the CS that after this issue came, when it was mentioned here in Parliament, the guy, Laban, has already been arrested, and Kangware people are happy. He has been arrested. He was arrested on Monday. That is Easter Monday. So the court will deal with that case. On the other issue, I want to commend the CS, Mr. Speaker, because I went to his office personally, and we discussed issues about Kagumo, and so far the OCS who had overstayed has so far left the station, and even the OCS for another area in Kanyekine called Mutito, who has also left. On the other question, there were a number of series, as the CS is saying, there were serious criminals, especially in the Kagumo area. They were breaking into businesses, and this was immediately after the elections. But I want to confirm that this has so far gone down, and we are happy with the work we are doing, Bwana CS. I don't have any other question. I thank you.
Yes, those are just comments. Kikaria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I want to thank Waziri for the information that he has given, and I want to confirm. It is true, the activities of the confirmed gang has been brought down by not even 60%, almost to 70%. Honorable Speaker, I can confirm we don't have even a single death in the last 1.5 months. But my question that I want to ask Waziri on this confirmed gang, Honorable Speaker, is that maybe, I don't know if he has a record of the number of deaths caused by these knife wielding gangs, because they carry a knife always, and they strike using the knife, including 2 of our very good rugby players who lost their lives around 3 months ago. So maybe if he has a number of the deaths which have been caused by this criminal gang. Secondly, phones are involved, because whenever they strike, they get your phone. And the the people who are attacked normally report to the police station for police to be able to follow up on these phones. Then, and that would be a better way of following a phone that has been stolen, and you can be able to reach to the people who committed that crime. And maybe the reports which have been done, how many phones have been recovered in the process, so that they can be able to arrest the people. Even if you bought a phone, then you must have bought it from somebody, then you give that information. Lastly,
thank you. That's enough. Okay, give him the mic. One supplementary, Gikari.
Yes, the very last one. Honorable Speaker, is about police officers. The station where this, because the operations of Confirm is normally on the southern part where we have a police station called Bondeni. And that police station, Honorable Speaker, is notorious about the police officers who collude with these criminal gangs to be able, I've heard they just change the command, but they leave the actual policemen who have become, so what action other than the command at the station? Because the police officer who has come now, the OCS, is doing a tremendous work. So what happens to the officers under him, who are the main culprits who are involved in collusion with this gang? And the very last one is, if I have information,
Now I'll give the floor to Honorable Mawade. Honorable Gikari, you have had 3 bites.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to thank the CS for having appeared here today so that we can be able to exchange with him, or rather answer our questions. First of all, I want to ask the Bwana CS, are you aware that on Thursday, March the 30th, a 17-year-old high school student by the name Master Ezekiel Macau of Double Vision Secondary School was shot at Pipeline Estate, a resident of Pipeline Estate. On the same day, also, a 16-year-old boy by the name Master Stephen Mwau Muthusi was hit with a tear gas canister on the head, admitted at Kenyatta National Hospital, and succumbed to the injuries and taken to the city mortuary, burial permit number 0416790 at the city mortuary. And what are we doing about the officers that shot these 2 young individuals? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Women Rep is Siolo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is a very specific question that concerns the commitments made by the Cabinet Secretary during his visit to Isiolo County on matters in security. First of all, I would like to thank him for making an effort to go to specific places where we've been having a challenge with insecurity along the border. That is Garissa, Wajir, and Samburu area, where it's becoming a security hotspot. We may be enjoying a relative peace at the moment because of the drought situation that has existed before, but now we are getting out of that with the blessings of the rain. Most expected scenario will be, there will be heightened activity. People will start moving around looking for pasture and water. So the relative calm we currently seeing could be deceiving. So my question, Cabinet Secretary, is to speak to the specific commitment you made in the area called Mlango, bordering Samburu County, an area called Yamicha, bordering Wajir County, and an area called Korbesa, bordering Garissa County, where we've had so many people killed and a lot of livestock taken. You promised you will put up a formed unit there. It could be a buffer zone where you ensure that such kind level of killings will not happen in the future. Where are we with that? Secondly, On the issue of KPR.
One at a time, I gave you an
KPR, Mr. Speaker, I'm finishing. On the issue of KPR, that could be very useful to our people. Where are we on that in the case of Isiolo? And for your criteria for operationalizing the sub-counties, the 80 sub-counties, could you also add the level of insecurity as one of the criteria to be considered to let counties be operationalized in that order? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Kamket.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that the appearance of the CS today in Parliament should be the beginning of our return constitutionally to the old system where cabinet secretaries are members of Parliament. Because indeed, we have been speaking to each other as Parliament without the presence of executive.
Honourable Kamket, I've given you an opportunity to ask a supplementary question and make a speech.
Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, you will indulge me because earlier on, some issues were raised about even my constituency. But I would like to ask the Cabinet Secretary, number one, could the Cabinet Secretary consider reviewing the curfew orders to exclude trading centers that are, in order not to lose the largely peaceful populations, the trading centers in my constituency? Number two, Mr. Speaker, given that so far there has been no policing value or even deterrence value of roadblocks, could the Cabinet Secretary consider reducing the roadblocks to make them as friendly as possible so as not to marginalize further the marginalized constituency of Tiati? And finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this floor to invite the Cabinet Secretary very politely to Tiati. I have seen him looking at Tiati from binoculars in some instances. I would like to invite him and take a visit, and perhaps he will come back with a better view of that marginalized constituency. There are, finally, sorry, Speaker, there are some gazetted administrative units, and there are others which we have proposed in order to bring government as close to the people as possible. And could he make a commitment on the floor on whether that is going to be done in the shortest time possible, including the Tiati Central Sub-County? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Saidi Poster. Give the mic to member from Galole.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, Tana River leaders had a meeting with the CS about 2 months ago. And in that meeting, the CS promised to give NPR from Tana River guns. But we have not seen those guns up to now. I want the CS to tell us when we are getting those guns. Tana River borders Lamu, and you know Lamu is a very volatile area in terms of security issues. So when are we getting those guns for our NPR? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Zamzam.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Mimi nina swali kwa waziri. Kwanza nikupongeze kuja leo bungeni kutusikiza. Na swali langu linaenda hivi: ikiwa sisi kina mama tunazalia watoto wetu hospitalini, kisha tunapewa ile notification, na kisha baada ya hapo kupata birth certificate ya mtoto inakuwa ni shida, mimi nauliza kwa nini usitufanyie wepesi pale pale hospitali, iwe mtoto akizaliwa anamaliziwa pale pale anapata birth certificate hospitali. Na kisha nikiangalia upande wa Pwani tunapata shida sana kupata certificate, na sisi tumekuwa marginalized muda mrefu. Mimi nataka niulize, kwa nini nakuwa Mpwani ama yule wa North Eastern anaambiwa lazima alete birth certificate ya babu, ya nyanya, ya nani, wakati ni Mkenya, pengine wale wazazi walikuwa ama babu walikuwa hana hiyo. Hiyo imetusumbua sana katika Pwani, na tunauliza kama waziri utasaidia vipi wakazi wa Pwani na kina mama kwenye birth certificate. Asante sana.
Mama Zamzam, hilo swali tulimalizana nalo zamani sana. Sasa tuko na swali la mageng ya uhalifu. Mope, ilikuwa inakuasha?
Hilo swali limenuasha kwa sababu ndio utata ulioko ndani ya Pwani, kwa hiyo sikupata mwanya, nimepitilizia hapa. Asante Bwana Spika.
Asante mami. Yes, Honorable. Yes. Ni Professor. Okay. Yes, ask your question, Mheshimiwa.
Asante, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is on the same. Igembe Central, we were promised NPRs, the guns were promised. So far, we've not got any. And the area also is marginalized. Insecurity cases are very high. Drug trafficking from the centers around Kiotene, this issue has been discussed. We requested that place be moved into a police station. Nothing has been done. Also, this area where there is a lot of insecurity, where we requested for the GSU camp, we have not received the results or the report. Could the Minister please respond on that and advise the way forward? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Last question of the day, Edith Nyanze. Gikaria, what is out of order?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This comes out of what the immediate Speaker, Mheshimiwa, has just indicated. Honourable Speaker, it's about the implementation of Waziri coming here, the commitments which are done. I had intended to ask towards the end, but that is yours so that you can give us direction, Honourable Speaker, is that the Committee on Implementation is one that takes up these matters once a commitment has been done. And I don't know whether we have any members of the Committee on Implementation for them to be able to be picking up what the Minister is committing to do, like what you have just said, that it was promised and it was never done. So that is a work of a committee.
Gikaria,
I'm only asking. I'm sorry.
Something untenable. That is why we have Hansard, and that's why we have these officers sitting in front of the Speaker. Yes. Edith Nyenze, what is out of order?
That's the last question.
The chair cannot be out of order. Take your seat. Take your seat, Honourable Member. Edith Nyenze.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me take this time to congratulate the CS for the good work he's doing, especially on answering the questions. My concern is on insecurity. Especially, the question is whether the police officers would actually arrest their own. And there was a case in my constituency in February whereby a businessman was attacked together with his family. They were attacked by 4 people who were in the police uniform and they were armed. And actually they were beaten and left for the dead. Then they were taken to the hospital. Then after that, 3 of them rightly could identify one of the thugs whom they said, or whom they identified as a police officer. And this case was reported to the right places, they were promised that the 4 thugs would be paraded so that they can identify the people, but this has not been done. It has actually been reported several times. I know there is a poor, but still no one is taking any action. So my question is, what should be done? And do really police officers are arrested by their own?
Minister, indulge me to give 2 more. Lillian Kogo and the honorable member who was solicited by.
I thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, and I appreciate the Honorable CS and his team for coming to the floor of the House. Mine concerns administrative units in Rangwe constituency. Papa, as it were, there are very, very big administrative units that I want to bring to the attention of the Honorable CS. We have big locations that need to be subdivided. What needs to be done has been done from our part. Game East has 1 chief and an assistant chief since independence. Kotieno has a chief and an assistant chief since independence. There has been proposals for Nyachar, Rangwe Town, West Kotieno and East Kotieno. Central has a proposal to have Kabor. Game Sorika Chiena has a proposal also to have 2 sub-locations. Komolo, Honorable CS, has a proposal to have Komolo divided into 2 sub-locations. And West Game, we need Upper Kanyanjua and Lower Kanyanjua. Kindly, Honorable CS, I ask this question: when are we going to have these units put in operation so that the people of Rangwe constituency can enjoy close services of administrative units as other places? We also need more locations in East Kochia and also in Gongo area. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Moses Kirima, finally.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My humble question.
1 minute. Who is the member standing and raising the hand? Because of the light, I can't see you clearly. Okay, after Kirima, I'll give you the last shot.
First, I thank the CS for the way he has answered the questions candidly, and we are really satisfied that CSS was supposed to be coming to Parliament to answer questions. We have been having raw answers before. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, my humble question is to the CS, to the extent that in my constituency and the surrounding constituencies in Meru County, we have been hit hard by hand and drugs menace. And at the same time, illicit blue. And that one is so much rampant around the Mount Kenya region. What is the CS doing to make sure that we stamp out these hand and drugs? Because almost in every market, you find a group of youths sitting down, and there are suppliers who comes in pikis, and these hand and drugs are not manufactured in Meru. They come all the way from Nairobi and some other areas. How do we do, or what is the ministry doing to make sure that we stop this transportation for them to be reaching the young men in our areas? They are becoming zombies. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, I have 2 requests which I have acceded to. Honorable Oyula from Butla, ask 1 question in 1 minute. Then I'll close with the Honorable Dr. Mwiti. And Honorable Mwiti, you don't have to stand to be given the opportunity, just sit. We must bring this to an end. Oyula, then Mwiti, then closure.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Then Mama Kwale. Yes. Go on, Oyula, 1 question.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to ask 1 question regarding insecurity
emerging in Butula constituency. This is come about by the so-called gold diggers. We have an area in the constituency which has been invaded by gold diggers, and they come from all over the country. During the day, they are busy in their gold digging. In the evenings, at night, they attack the residents. And this is now becoming very serious. Can something be done to investigate this case and even stop that exercise of gold digging? Because if left now, it will go beyond control. Thank you.
Thank you. Mwiti, Dr. Mwiti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, let me take this opportunity to thank the CS for having sorted out the issue of the DCC in Boget and Egoji, and also to thank the CS for having managed to secure the security between Tharaka and the Saudi Ment where criminals are invaded. However, I would like the CS to tell us when he is providing the vehicle for the OSPD and Kobu, who is serving 250,000 and the 3 sub-counties. We are desperately in need of transport and also to manage the security. Thank you, Speaker.
Mama Kwale. Huyo ndio wa mwisho kabisa.
Mimi ndio wa mwisho.
Huyo ndio wa mwisho kabisa.
Basi nishukuru Mheshimiwa Spika. Nimshukuru Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kuweza kunipatia nafasi hii. Nimuulize Waziri wa Usalama wa Ndani. Kwanza pia nimpatie kongole kwa kuweza kuchaguliwa kama Waziri wa Usalama wa Ndani. Pili pia nimshukuru kwa kuweza kuitwa mbele ya bunge hili na kuweza kutii amri. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nimetoka kaunti ya Kwale. Mimi ndio mama Kwale. Namuuliza Mheshimiwa Waziri, pale Kwale mimi nina shida ambayo imeibuka. Shida ya vijana wanajiita vijana wa vipanga. Vijana wadogo sana, vijana wa miaka 13 mpaka miaka 17, 16 hapo. Vijana wanauana wenyewe kwa wenyewe. Vijana wanatumia madawa ya kulevya ambayo yana msisimko fulani ndani ya mwili, inamtuma kijana kwenda kumuua mwenzake. Wanaweza kuwa wamekaa mahali pamoja wakinywa kahawa na wakageukiana wakakatana mapanga. Nina idadi ya vijana ambao wameuana kutoka mtaa mmoja hadi mwingine. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna sehemu inaitwa mahali nilizaliwa, Ngombeni Ward. Ina vijiji takriban vijiji 27. Lakini kijana hawezi kutoka kwa kijiji kimoja kwenda kwa kijiji chengine, aidha kwa kutembea au kijana wa bodaboda kutoka kijiji kimoja kwenda kijiji chengine, kwa hofu ya mauaji ya wenyewe kwa wenyewe. Na polisi wetu wameshindwa kudhibiti hali ile. Mheshimiwa Spika,
swali ni lipi?
Sasa mimi nauliza, wizara ina mipango gani Mheshimiwa Spika ya kuzuia uhalifu huu? Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Thank you.
Asante sana Mama Jen Kihara. You have twisted the chair into giving you the last chance. If it's about Nakuru criminal gangs, Gikaria has very efficiently asked questions. Yes.
Yes, I know. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I sat there on intervention. I thought you just wanted to hear about bandits. We don't have bandits in Naivasha. Mr. Speaker, I wish to ask the minister whether he knows that there is a notorious Kenya Coast Guards who guard our inland Lake Naivasha, who have been killing our youth right, left, and center and drowning them. Because when they go to look for their livelihood, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the minister whether he can consider withdrawing the Kenya Coast Guards from Lake Naivasha and leave it to the fisheries department to guard their fish. Otherwise, these people have killed so many youth, they have drowned them, they are notorious, and I am not sure that is why we have Kenya Coast Guards, because this is an inland lake. They can be used elsewhere in the international boundaries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, those are many, but there are short questions. You can give snippets.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, members, for the interest and for raising all these matters about your constituencies. Honorable Speaker, the information that was supplied by the member for Kirinyaga Central was about the arrest on Monday. I think our response was filed, I think, 2 days earlier. It was filed yesterday. It was prepared on Monday. That's why that had not been captured.
You should bask in the compliment and move
And
on.
therefore, I wanted to thank the Honorable Kichari for that information. The member for Nakuru West asked about statistics. We can provide them, but not right now. Perhaps that's something he can follow up in the office or even through the parliamentary channels. But I also want to confirm to the same member that about 3 weeks ago, we arrested one of the top suspects of this gang. And in his possession were found nearly 600 phones. The excuse he gave is that this is a dealer in second-hand phones. He could not provide the evidence. We have charged him. But right now, all those phones are with the DCI. The Crime Research Intelligence Bureau is analyzing those phones. If they can help us, perhaps net a few more individuals. And therefore, I agree with the member for Nakuru Town West that the phones that are stolen can help us even track victims who are alive, who can even give us more information about who stole from them, and we continue tracking and finding these criminals and their command system. Honorable Speaker, I have also heard from the member for Nakuru Town West about the East, the Honorable Gekaria, about the Bondeni police station. We will follow up. But as I've said, the policy of government, which we are going to apply across the country, in every polling station across Kenya, every police station, every police post, no officer of whatever rank who has served more than 3 years will remain there. So not just for Bondeni. We are going to do it. It's going to be across the country. If you have served in a station, in a police post for 3 years, it is time to go. Honorable Speaker, with regard to the question raised by the member for Embakasi South, with regard to the 2 deaths, I will need to establish where the investigations are on those 2 matters. But as I said earlier, if these deaths are related to the protests, it will be unlikely that police officers have been used to engage with live ammunition, because the policy of this administration is that they can use other methods of crowd control but not live bullets. So we will have to find out where investigations are on this matter and perhaps reports. And the member is free to visit us in our office. My colleagues are here, the PSCs and other senior officers will support you to find justice for your constituents and make sure that those matters are taken up to conclusion. We have nothing to hide. And we have told our police officers that any officer who uses their firearms to enforce law and order and to defend themselves from being hurt by criminals, dangerous criminals, in the manner in which the Constitution and the law allows, we will defend those officers everywhere and openly. Because also we don't want our officers to be fodder for criminals. The same pain I feel when a citizen is killed by a police officer is the same pain I feel when a police officer wearing the uniform of our country is brought down by a criminal. So we will defend any officer who prevents a criminal from killing them or killing innocent people. But at the same time, we have told our police officers, all of them, all the ranks, any police officer who misuses firearms outside the law to kill, that officer will be on their own. In fact, government will be the one pursuing justice on behalf of those victims. So that is the policy position on the use of lethal force, especially by police officers. Honorable Speaker, there was also the issue raised by the member for Isiolo. I've been to Isiolo 3-4 times, and as I said, Honorable Speaker, we are trying our best to make sure that we address security challenges on the ground where they happen. The country is big. We've only been in office for 5 months. I want to assure you, Honorable Speaker, that after a year, I don't think there will be any part of the country, any constituency where the minister and my colleagues in the senior leadership of the ministry will not have come to assist you as leaders and your people to tackle your problems about security. We are on the way. It's only that we cannot be everywhere, and we have only been in office for a very short period of time. In response, therefore, to the question raised by the member for Isiolo County, the Honorable Mumina, we are ready to establish the formed units for Mlango and Yamicha as promised. I have been ready for the last 2 weeks. I contacted some of the leadership, and I was advised because of Ramadan, we do deployment immediately after Eid al-Fitr. So I want to promise concretely that within a month, we'll have formed units in Yamicha and Mlango to make sure that we don't have the incidents we've had there. I also want to commit that also we'll establish the Corpesa police post also within the same period of 1 month. Honorable Speaker, there was also, of course, the issue of NPRs. We've had challenges with because the deployments that we need to do now were not in last year's budget. So we had to stagger the deployments a little bit to allow us factor in budgetary provisions. And therefore, where you have delays in some of the places that have been raised, it is because of budgetary constraints. But every commitment that has been made will be met. We did not make any commitment just for the sake of it. And therefore, I will again expedite and prioritize the commitment for Isiolo. I know, Honorable Speaker, I can mention also there is a request from Marsabit, which was raised by Honorable Didaraso about that area around Marsabit town. Again, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will have deployed because of the unique circumstances that the Honorable Member and the leaders from Marsabit raised. Honorable Speaker, there was also the question which was raised by the member for Tiati, the Honorable Kamket, who correctly stated that he saw photographs of the minister looking at Tiati on binoculars. Although he has no evidence, Mr. Speaker, that the minister was looking at Tiati, because he was not there. He just saw a picture and binoculars, but he assumed maybe I was looking at Tiati because, I think he is correct to assume so, because I am yet to visit Tiati. I'll be in Tiati on Tuesday at Chemolingot, and I will visit and stay around for a while. I'll also be visiting Elgeyo Marakwet, Lamu, and Busia, and also I'll also be visiting Tana River and Baringo. It's going to be quite a heavy schedule. By the time we meet here next time, some of these problems will not be there. The Honorable Speaker, therefore, with regard to administrative units, we will prioritize again, as asked by the member for Isiolo and the member for Tiati and a few other members. Insecurity is going to carry some weight in determining which of the pending sub-counties and administrative units should take first preference, even as we roll out to make sure we operationalize all the gazetted administrative units in the next 3 years. So that will be a big factor. That also answers the question raised by the Honorable Member for Rangwe. And we will factor in also regional balance, as I said, so that the first batch will have every region of Kenya represented, the second batch the same, the third batch, and so forth and so on. A very fair criteria which will be available for public information. Honorable Speaker, there was a question also raised by the member for Imenti Central, the Honorable Kirima, on drugs, and this is a problem in many parts of our country. Big problem in the larger central Kenya. Government has put in place a stakeholder roadmap generation program to make sure that we get lasting solutions, starting with Nyeri this Friday for about 4 or 5 counties. From there, we'll go to Nakuru, again 4 or 5 counties involving the South Rift, including Bomet, Kericho, Narok, and Nakuru. After that, we'll go to the coast, where this problem also is there. After that, we'll come to eastern part of Mount Kenya, Meru, Embu, Tharaka Nithi, and we'll go on, including we need to have a conference in Wajir, because there's evidence and intelligence about the transportation of hard drugs and narcotics from neighboring countries through Moyale into Marsabit, and sometimes through Wajir, and then converging somewhere in Isiolo. And therefore, that area also there's a problem of drugs and psychotropic substances. We are going to roll out a program nationwide, and it is going to be more vicious than even the fight against bandits, because the danger to our country's future and the generations to come that these drugs and substances are causing will live with us for a very long time. So we are going to be vicious and make sure we tackle this problem. Honorable Speaker, the other question was raised by, again, member for Tiati on roadblocks and exclusion of certain market centers. Honorable Speaker, I would like to inform the House that I will be reviewing the orders on Friday, and therefore I encourage the member for Tiati to submit his request to the office by close of business tomorrow, because by midnight on Friday I'll be reviewing some of those orders to adjust depending on the experience we have had and the feedback we are getting, and will accommodate any legitimate request that helps us not to stifle the economy, but at the same time we don't expose the country to security threats. Honorable Speaker, the member for Galole raised issues about Tana River. It is true, Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior made commitments about NPRs in Tana River, but I've told you why up to now we have not deployed because of budgetary constraints. But when I visit Tana River within the next 2 weeks, we'll find a way of perhaps giving you a small number, even as we wait for the June budget to be able to give you a full deployment. Honorable Speaker, that's okay, Honorable Speaker.
2 minutes for you.
The other one left is from the Honorable Edith Nyenze. She asked whether a police officer can be arrested, and the answer is yes. Where there is evidence, we disarm them and arrest them, and we do that all the time. And therefore, I invite the honourable member to give us a formal complaint or a request on what needs to be done. Honourable Speaker, there were questions raised about vehicles. Member for Imenti South raised an issue about Nkobo OCPD, and I think again that's a genuine request among so many others we are having. We'll be able to procure through leasing another 200 or so vehicles, which we are going to distribute fairly across the country, and Nkobo OCPD will be part of that benefit. And essentially every OCPD should be able to have a vehicle, and also other police stations on a need basis. Other than that, Honourable Speaker,
touch on the Coast Guards on Lake Naivasha for
on the Coast Guard, Honourable Speaker, on the Coast Guard we have had a command problem, because the Coast Guard is not part of the Navy. Coast Guard is a police function. Their work is to enforce the law within Kenya's territorial waters, which means 12 nautical miles off the baseline of the Indian Ocean, and all inland waters, including Lake Naivasha, Lake Rudolph, Lake Turkana, Lake Victoria. But we have had a command issue there because the leadership has been with the military, and because of the disciplinary discrepancies, the head of Coast Guard has not been directly responsible to under the command of the Inspector General. And that has had enforcement issues. It has been resolved. And today, His Excellency, the President has appointed a senior police officer to be the Director General of Coast Guard. That senior police officer will be responsible directly to the Inspector General of Police. Then the other agencies now, including the military, can second other officers, KRA, and other enforcement measures. That has been resolved, and that's why perhaps for Naivasha, we have not been able to enforce because of those command issues. Today, in line with the Section 17 of the Coast Guard Act, that command issue has been resolved. Finally, the issue of the GSU camp in Gembe Central, I think that I can also make that commitment within the 1 month commitments that I have made, because I know we have resolved the issues that were outstanding. Other than that, Honourable Speaker.
The small boys killing each other in Kwale, have you touched on that?
Yes, I would like, I do not have that information, and I thank the Honourable Member for bringing it to my attention. I request, as we've done in so many other cases, including the cases I've spoken about Isiolo, the cases I've spoken about Marsabit and other parts of our country. Honourable Speaker, the reason we have been able to address these issues, Kirinyaga Central and everywhere else, is we've been meeting with the leaders, including members of parliament. And I am done with almost 3/4 of all the counties. There is a small number remaining. I commit to be meeting with the leaders from those counties in the next few weeks. So I encourage the member for Kwale to formally write and say what it is, so that it becomes the genesis of developing a program to resolve that emerging gang in Kwale there that can grow into a big problem in future. Other than that, Honourable Speaker, I want to thank you for your courtesy. It has been, I've been outside Parliament for 5 months now or more, 6 months, so I'm in the cold. So it's quite warm to be back among old and new colleagues. And I must thank you for your hospitality and kindness. And I want to apologize if I have not been as available as I ought to be. We'll try and improve and work together with you as elected leaders to deliver the vision of a safe Kenya and a country where the leadership responds to the needs of the public. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. You may take your seat there. I have a request from the chair of the committee that oversees your ministry Honorable Tongoyo, we have exhausted our 3 hours. We have only about 4 minutes left. So I'll give you 2 minutes to say what you want to say.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will try to finish what I wanted to say. The 2 minutes allocated. Mine is first to congratulate and commend the Honorable CS for Interior and Interior and Government Coordination for being the first to appear before this House to answer to these questions of members. And true, Mr. Speaker, he has really done it well. I'm sure from the majority of the questions asked by members, he has really answered them satisfactorily and clearly well. And this confirmed the wisdom of His Excellency the President to have the standing orders amended to allow the Cabinet Secretaries to appear in this House to answer members' questions. I'm sure he has really set the bar so high. I'm sure the rest of the Cabinet Secretaries appearing will really have a little bit of hard time to match up. Mr. Speaker, from the interest generated by members, inform the importance of the matter security in this country. And I want to personally take this opportunity to thank the CS, whom I've worked so closely with since he was appointed. And I can confirm that I think he's the only Cabinet Secretary who has never traveled out of this country, because he has been always attending to the matters matters of this country. And he has actually demonstrated that he has even managed to have traveled to almost every part of this country. So he's a very dedicated officer, he's a very dedicated minister. And there's been a complaint from members of this House that majority of Cabinet Secretaries hardly respond to their request, to their phone calls, but Professor Kindiki has been an exceptional. So I want to commend him, and Kenyans have got high hope, and I just want to ask him to keep the pace, because Kenyans have got a lot of trust in him.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, as I near to finish, what has been asked by these members touches their constituencies, and they were talking on behalf of their members they represent. But one thing stood out. We have a very committed, dedicated, more focused Cabinet Secretary, but resources has been always a problem. I want to challenge these members to help the ministry, and the CS in particular, to help him able to accomplish matters related to securities in this country by helping wherever you can, either legislative, either resources allocation, more so even using our NGCDF to put up police stations, administrative units, because that will help the ministry with the little resources they have to cater for the most urgent ones. Yes. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say thank you so much, but just 1 minute. Just add me a minute, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, as I finish, the CS talked about the issue, the very, very emotive issue of security in this country. And I know it has been a challenge, mostly on the North Rift, and members are convinced that the government is taking all it can to address it. Buena CS, you've talked about the majority of the criminal activity in this country, and it's true, crime is a crime, either perpetrated or done by our police officers, or criminal gangs, or by bandits. And the misuse of firearm should be taken so seriously. I even personally have a situation whereby the NPR, working as rangers in my own constituency, Mr. Speaker, used the firearm that they were given to shoot to the innocent headers that were actually just going about their own businesses. And the matter is under the investigation of IPOWER and the CID, but should it be found necessary, we can able to even escalate to the CS to take action, even if it is actually recalling their firearms.
Thank you, Honorable.
So thank you so much, Speaker, and pongezi sana waziri. I'm proud of you.
Time up. Morugara, what is the issue? I was
Thank
going
you.
to give the majority leader 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. The majority will take 2 minutes. I will take only 1 minute. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to thank my constituent, the Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki. Those who may not know, is actually a constituent of Tharaka constituency in Tharaka Nithi County, and congratulate him because he's done a very, very, very good job, a perfect job in terms of answering the questions from the members. And this is exactly what we've been asking for. Now it does look like this is what we are getting. So we are happy, even to the members, for having amended the standing orders, because with this now, I think we are closely interacting with the government the way a legislature is supposed to interact with the government. Very well done, Professor. Thank you very much.
Owen Bayer, on behalf of the majority leadership.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first I want to thank you for midwifing this process, that this process came through your hands, and now we are here oversighting government and introducing new levels of accountability. Honorable Speaker, what I would like to commend is that from the majority side, both the majority and minority have a responsibility to oversight government. And I think this was a pure and good display of the same. And I want to say, but also to thank you, Honorable Speaker, for sitting there for 3 hours to midwife this process and ensure that, I think we need to give a thumb to the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you've done tremendously well. And I also want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for a good job. But note that when we come here, we are members of Parliament oversighting government. And I think this is the President's dream, to ensure that we hold Cabinet Secretaries to account. And also to tell the other Cabinet Secretaries to come prepared next time so that they can handle. Professor Kindiki has set the bar very high, and the others that will come will need to take it to another level. And I also to thank all the other members. Today the quorum was very good, Mr. Speaker, very good. I think this is very good Parliament, and Parliament is moving a notch higher every day. I thank you. Asante sana.
Honorable members, that brings to a closure of our question time, an innovation under our 2010 Constitution and amended standing orders. To the Minister, Professor Kindiki, you have come well. You have set the bar reasonably high for your colleagues to follow. You can see, Minister, that the docket you hold is actually the nerve center of the peace and security of the country. The number of questions that have been raised by members on the floor, even the supplementaries, indicate very clearly that you have your job cut out. You have to move the length and breadth of the country to ensure that there's adequate policing, proper policing, police adherence to the law, non-violation of any people's rights, but above all, to capacitate the police to do their job in terms of equipment, in terms of mobility, and to remain accountable to the people's representatives that sit in this House. You've done very well. I congratulate you, being the maiden appearance by any cabinet minister. And I hope your colleagues who are watching to see how well you perform, so that when they come, we expect nothing less from them. Thank you very much, and you are released to go back to your office. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, extension of period for consideration of a special motion on approval of appointment.
Yes, call the Deputy Speaker. Who is coming, Bandit? Yes, Farah. The Chairperson, the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. Yes. Honorable members, remember that if business is to be prosecuted in the manner we envisaged, you are sitting up to 9 p.m.
It's a procedural motion. Thank you. who is from jail up here. So you just will second me. You just say I thank you. You say I second. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 relating to the extension of period of consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of a special motion relating to the approval of a nominee submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment as the chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission by a period of 14 days from 12 April 2023, which is today. Mr. Speaker, allow me to explain the reasons for this procedural motion. And the reasons are that on Wednesday, the 5th of April 2023, the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs vetted a nominee to the position of the chairperson, Ethics and Anti-Corruption, by the name Bishop David Oginde. Unfortunately, Easter holiday set in, and the committee was not able to retreat to do a report. Yesterday, there would have been a meeting, but again, there was a parliamentary group meeting on the part of the Kenya Kwanza coalition. Thus, the committee has not been able to do the report and requires 14 days, maximum 14 days. It may do it within a shorter period of time, which will be the better. But a maximum of 14 days for us to do the report and table it to this House. The report must be informative. It must be to the required standards. It must be in consonance with the work done and delivered by the Justice and Legal Affairs Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. So therefore, I appeal to this House to actually agree to the extension of time for a period of 14 days so that we are able to produce the report and bring it to the House. With those remarks, I beg to move and request the Honorable Member for Baringo North, Honorable McClap, to second.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Okay. Honorable members, pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011 relating to extension of period of consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves. Honorable members, I now propose the question. Order. I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011 relating to extension of period of consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of a special motion relating to the approval of a nominee submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment as the chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission by a period of 14 days from 12 April 2022. There being no need for somebody to debate this, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011 relating to extension of period of consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of a special of a special motion relating to the approval of a nominee submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment as the chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for a period of 14 days from 12th April 2022. As many of the opinion say aye. Aye. As many of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Political Parties Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Political Parties Act 2011. Order number 10, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017.
Next order.
Order number 11, special motion, consideration of nominee for appointment as member of the National Gender and Equality Commission.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Social Protection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that, taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Social Protection in its report on the vetting of a nominee for the appointment as a member of the National Gender and Equality Commission, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 11th April 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 250, Section 2 of the Constitution, Section 11(7) of the Gender and Equality Commission Act 2011, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of Dr. Margaret Karungaru as a member of the National Gender and Equality Commission. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Article 250, 2 of the Constitution as read with Article 11 of the National Gender and Equality Commission Act 2011, His Excellency the President notified the National Assembly of the nomination of Margaret Karungaru as member of the National Gender and Equality Commission. The Honorable Speaker, via a communication made on 10th March 2023, conveyed to the House the message from His Excellency the President and subsequently referred the name of the nominee, her curriculum vitae, and the report of the selection panel on her nomination to the committee to conduct the approval hearing. Honorable Speaker, in compliance with Article 118B of the Constitution and Section 6(4) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011, the Clerk of the National Assembly placed an advertisement in the print media on 20th March 2023 informing the public of the nomination, date, time and place of the approval hearings. The Clerk also invited the public to submit memoranda by way of written statements on oath, or rather affidavits, on the suitability of the nominee in conformity with Section 6(9) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011. And at the close of the submission deadline, the committee had not received any memorandum contesting the nominee's suitability. Mr. Speaker, the Clerk of the National Assembly also wrote to the Kenya Revenue Authority, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the Higher Education Loans Board, and the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, seeking references and background checks relating to the suitability of the nominee. The nominee appeared before the committee on Wednesday, 29th March 2023 for vetting. The committee examined her suitability based on the criteria set out in Section 7 of the Political Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011 and Section 10 and 11 of the National Gender and Equality Commission Act number 15 of 2011. And in addition, the committee examined her academic credential, relevant experience, knowledge of sector issues, and on leadership and integrity. Mr. Speaker, during the approval hearing, the committee also paid due regard to the procedure used to arrive at the nominee, any constitutional or statutory requirements relating to the office in question, and suitability of the nominee for appointment proposed, having regard to whether the nominee's abilities, experience, and qualities meet the needs of the National Gender and Equality Commission. In this regard, the committee observed as follows: that the nominee holds a bachelor's degree in education from the University of Nairobi, 1979, and is pursuing a master's degree in arts at the in international relations from the University of London, Queen's Mary College, which is ongoing. The nominee also holds an honorary doctorate degree from Kingdom University International Community Service and Development, USA. The nominee attended Kiamwangi Primary School, Nyeri, Sacred Heart Primary School, Kieni, Embu, and Alliance Girls High School, where she sat for her O-level and A-level examinations. The nominee has worked in various capacities, including 1986 to 1987 as lecturer Kagumo Teachers College in Nyeri, 1989 to 1995, headmistress Nyakiambi Girls High School in Nyandarua, 1985 to 1988, deputy headmistress Moi Girls High School, Kamangu, 1984-1985, teacher at Solian Girls High School, Baringo, 1981-83, teacher at Stare Boy Center, and 1980, a teacher at Ngara Girls High School. The nominee meets the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution on Leadership and Integrity, having obtained clearances from the following statutory bodies: the EACC, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Kenya Revenue Authority, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, and the Higher Education Loans Board. The nominee has not been charged in any court in the past 3 years. Mr. Speaker, the nominee does not hold office in any political party, and Mr. Speaker, the nominee has never been dismissed from office under Article 75 of the Constitution for contravention of the provisions of Article 75(1), that is conflict of interest, Article 76, financial probity, and Article 77, restriction on activities of state officers, and Article 78, Mr. Speaker, on dual citizenship as a requirement of the Constitution. The nominee, Mr. Speaker, demonstrated knowledge of topical, administrative, and technical issues touching on gender equality, freedom from discrimination, and the functions and operations of the National Gender and Equality Commission, and has the requisite abilities, qualifications, and experience to serve as a member of the National Gender and Equality Commission. Mr. Speaker, in light of the foregoing, having conducted the approval hearings for the nominee pursuant to Article 250 of the Constitution, Section 10 and 11 of the National Gender and Equality Commission Act 2011, Section 3 and 8(2) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011, and Standing Orders 45 and 216, the committee recommends
conclusion in decision making. She has also informed the committee of her experience in the teaching fraternity as a teacher in different schools. She has served as a head teacher for different girls' schools. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion. Thank you.
Honorable members, I now propose a question that taken into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Social Protection in its report on the vetting of a nominee for the appointment as a member of the National Gender and Equality Commission, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 11th April 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Articles Article 250, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, Section 11, 7 of the National Gender Equality Commission Act of 2011, and Section 8, Subsection 1 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011. This House approves the appointment of Dr. Margaret Karungaru as a member of the National Gender and Equality Commission. I think you have established a tradition, probably in the last 10 years, in which on such weighty matters you have to have a quorum before you can then take the decision as a House. I'm informed of this by none other than the people who hold the institutional memory of the House. So under the circumstances, I think you ring the quorum bell and get sufficient members into the House to be able to approve this. Not when the quorum bill is ringing. I've ordered. Now I order Sergeant at Arms, ring the quorum bell. The Honorable Owen Baya, get your party whip here, majority whip here, to whip the members to come. Honorable members, when you decide to ask the chair to put the question and you don't have a quorum, then you must have thought about it. And the rules have since changed in the last 10 years. When I was here last time, unless a member stands and raises up the issue of quorum, we never used to have a problem. The speaker, sees nothing and hears nothing until he's told. But now I'm told that you have changed the rules since. You must have a quorum to be able to make a decision or resolution of the House on such weighty matters. Under the circumstances, the bell is rung. Go and whip your own members to come back here and constitute the requested quorum. She's a lady like you, so. Honorable members, when the bell is ringing, the rules are very clear. No member is supposed to go out except the whips, except the ones who are whipping. My presumption is that my good, able Deputy Speaker and Owen Baya are going to go and whip members. That's what she told me. So proceed. Go and whip members.